Welcome to New Orleans, or Jefferson Parish. What is it? Jefferson, New Orleans. Glad to see you. We don't have a lot on the agenda today, but we're going to get through it and give everybody a chance to say what they got to say, and hopefully we'll be out of here by dinner time. Lunch, as y'all say, lunch. Would Mr. Francis say the prayer and
let's stand up, honor our God, our Creator. Let's pray. Father, our God, we ask your blessings upon this day. Thank you, Father, that we all strive to serve our fellow man, especially here in Louisiana. Just be with us today. All your things that we do and say here be according to your will. You just guide us with your Holy Spirit. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Mr. Lewis, would you?
Here's the flag.
Nope. Boy Scout.
He's good.
Flag. Is this the right way?
Yes,
That's
sir.
it.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Commissioner,
like to thank everyone for your prayers and support during this rough and tumble Secretary of State race. And God blessed me coming in third, so I won't be worried about being in a runoff, and I'm back full time. And thank you, every one of you, for all your encouragement and your support and your votes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I was going to say something, but glad you said that. You did a nice job. You ran a real good race, and you almost made it. That means that there's always room for another try if you're interested in doing that down the road. Politics is a rough and tumble game. Y'all all know that. It's a great thing. I've been in politics 50 years, will be 50 years, and it's been the greatest life in the world. You get to help people every day, and what an education you get. You get to talk about everything from kilowatts to beauty shops. So it's a wide range of activities. Number one. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I want to take time to introduce another member of the District 3 office. The Department of Energy offers the Clean Energy Innovators Fellowship, a program that funds recent graduates and energy professionals to support critical energy organizations to advance clean energy solutions that will decarbonize the power system, electrify transportation and industry, and make the U.S. power system more resilient and equitable and inclusive. The Department of Energy selected 27 sites across this country. And my office here at the Louisiana Public Service Commission was selected to host a fellow for 1 to 2 years. And so I would like to introduce the newest member of our team, our Clean Innovation Fellow, Frances Arthur. She hails from the South. She has a BA in Environmental Science from the Savannah State University, my sister's alma mater, and a Master's of Environmental and Sustainability from the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. She has been an energy analyst for Energy Advisors. She has worked at DET Energy as a intern. She also did some carbon analyzation, I should say, in Puerto Rico, as well as an extensive experience in the energy industry. And so we are honored to welcome Frances into the District 3 team and to the Louisiana Public Service Commission, and look forward to working with you over the next 2 years. Frances, please stand and be recognized. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So staff does have a couple of announcements. The first is that the Public Utilities Section's annual CLE will be held on December the 1st at the City Club in Baton Rouge. The agenda is being finalized and will be emailed to the section members along with the registration form in the next week. If you do not receive an email with the registration form over the next week, then your membership in the section is not current. Please reach out to Carrie Tunion if you have any questions or need to update your membership. We also have a couple more announcements. The first is that the November B&E is being moved to Monday, November the 20th. It's Monday, November the 20th. Is the new B&E. It is still going to be held in Baton Rouge. Then we also, well, you have one at...
Yeah, so... Am I on? Oh, no, there we go. A couple of months ago, I had announced we had a retirement on staff, and we searched far and wide to fill Arnold Chauvier's position, and I'm happy to announce we have now filled the position with Arnold Chauvier. So I'd like y'all to welcome Arnold to the staff.
And then we are moving one agenda item up out of order. It's under exhibit number 11, so we'll take up the discussion of available federal funding for energy efficiency and how such funding could work with the Commission's rules first. And we do have a Mr. Christopher Justin here who would like to speak on that matter.
Mr. Chairman, while he comes up, I did fail to make another announcement. I would like to congratulate Annie Matthews in my office, our legal fellow, for passing the Louisiana bar. She was sworn in this Monday, and we just want to welcome you as a new attorney in the state of Louisiana.
Gentlemen, if you'll just press the button, make sure the light turns on green, and introduce yourselves for the record, please.
I would also, I hate to interrupt you like that.
No, go ahead.
I know it's okay. I'm just kidding. Ms. Craven's dad got elected over the weekend. He's a judge. And Ms. Craven, Charlotte Craven, works with Mr. Lewis. Her dad's a good friend of mine, and he won, and he'll be a great judge. He's a nice fellow, always polite to everybody, was an assistant DA, and now he's a district judge. So can tell your dad, we're all glad he won. I'm very glad. Thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Chris Justin.
I'm Sidney Lee, President of Air Conditioned Ambulance Service.
Would you push your microphones a little bit back? It's real loud.
Is that a little bit better?
That's better. Isn't it better? Yeah. Usually you have to pull them up, but this way it needs to be back. Thank you.
Sure thing. Okay, great. Unfortunately, we do not have a slideshow projector here, but I did print out several copies of the presentation. At least you three should have it here.
We got it.
Great. Okay, so my name is Chris Justin. I am a former licensed professional engineer. I worked at the Shell Norco refinery for 6 years, and I am a small business owner providing energy efficiency services in Louisiana. I'm here to talk about the federally funded Home Energy Rebates Program. If you'll flip to the next page here. Louisiana has been allocated $212 million in federal funds to increase residential energy efficiency. Next page. This home energy rebates program pays up to $14,000 per household for EE upgrades. How's the volume? Too loud still? Doing okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. These rebates cover things such as weatherization, air conditioning, water heating, electrical panel work, etc. They are mostly for low and middle income households, which I can define exactly what that is if you're interested. And they are often upfront discounts, meaning qualifying households will owe little to nothing at the point of purchase. They are in addition to federal tax credits, and contractors who provide these services are eligible for up to $500 in additional funds through the Home Energy Rebates Program. Next page.
Show me the page. This the page?
Yes, yeah, we're all here. Yeah,
They're not numbered, so we're just.
yeah, thank you. Sorry
Okay,
about
go
that.
ahead.
And I think we'll have a couple minutes for questions at the end. According to the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, Louisiana households who implement these sort of measures would save 42 to 51% on their energy bills. That could be anywhere from $300 to $1,000 per year in utility bill savings. Next page.
This is,
Go ahead.
this is big numbers, but you feel good about these 42 to 51%?
So in the presentation, which I apologize to the audience, I will share electronically afterward. This is, these aren't my numbers. This is from NREL, which is a well-respected government organization. And this is specifically for Louisiana. There are a number of upgrades included in that 42 to 51%. I highlighted a basic enclosure upgrade plus whole home electrification.
Do you feel like Louisiana would benefit more than any other state, since we have a lot of the poorest people living here? Probably conditions are not conducive to saving a lot of electricity. So do you think our state would really benefit?
I do believe that we would benefit. There may be some pre-weatherization work that needs to happen. I know that y'all have been thinking about that, or at least the Department of Natural Resources is looking into that. But yes, I do believe that we would benefit.
Proportionally, could get a lot of money, huh? Proportionally, the number of people in Louisiana, $106 million. Compared to other states, that's a lot because we don't have a lot of people. Is that correct?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I know. So we're getting $212 million. I know Florida has been allocated $346 million. So, and Texas has gotten way more. I can't rattle off every state off the top of my head, but the total program is $8.8 billion.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Across America, do they figure how many people are living in a particular state? Is their money allocated fairly like that, do you think?
The funds, so right now there's a federal tax credit available for folks to make these sort of upgrades. This program is specifically for low and middle income households who may not be able to benefit from because they may not have the tax liability that they would actually receive the discount. So, and the low income threshold is set at 80% of the area median income. Here in Jefferson Parish, that is a household of four making under $65,600 would qualify for the full rebate level. So, by definition, 80% of the median income here, under 80% of the median. So a little under half, about.
So we have 5 commissioners with 5 different footprints.
Commissioner, can you make sure your mic is turned on, please? Or speak
Yes.
a little? It
Can
is.
you hear me okay?
There you go.
We have 5 commissioners in Louisiana, each one with a different footprint. So this $200 million, will it be divided equally amongst each of the 5, or is it going to be according to the household needs? Do you know which way?
It's not going to be split among the different districts. It's going to be one pot of funds for the state. So as written, the state is to administer this program, and I don't believe, they're not required to allocate certain percentages to different districts. It's a 10-year program as well, so it's going to be here for a long time.
Which department of the state administers it?
Natural resources.
So Natural Resources administering a energy efficiency program?
I'm not sure that they will be the ones administering it. They are responsible for applying for the funds, for essentially determining how the program will run. But within the program, there is a significant amount of money to pay for administration. So they may choose to have someone else administer the program.
So which agency in the state would be most appropriate for administering items associated with energy efficiency of electricity?
Honestly, you would know better than me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we do.
Mr.
Yeah.
Francis, you got any more questions?
That's good.
I have the same kind of thinking that he's thinking. I represent 24 parishes, from Alexandria to Arkansas, from Texas to the middle of the Mississippi River. A lot of rural parishes, not many people. We have to make sure that we get our fair share. That's basically what you're talking about.
That's right.
And a lot of little towns, Dry Prong, Colfax, Spring Hill, you name it, they have special needs, and we have to make exceptions. You know, if you're going to look just by doing Baton Rouge and Shreveport, that's great, but a lot of people live all over these little towns, Tallulah, you name it, Columbia. So we have to make sure this money is equally spread out. That's what I'm the most interested in. And I'm not interested in some czar telling me where all this money ought to be spent. That's the thing, because I think I've done a real good job with it, and I watch it, and we do it all by bid, and we have reputable contractors, and nobody gets any favoritism, and that's the way I want to see it continue. And I'm not saying it's not, but I'm just saying for me to be satisfied, it's going to have to be equally distributed.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm wondering why they didn't come straight to the Public Service Commission for us to handle it without being this other agency. I don't know why this other agency is involved in it. We're the ones who are in charge of the utility service for the people, and not this other. What agency did you say it
The
was?
Department of Natural Resources is
Department of
tasked.
Natural Resources. Okay, not the Public Service Commission. So,
As written in the law, the state energy offices are responsible for applying for the funds, and as I understand it, someone within DNR is taking that on.
Mr. Secretary, what you think about that? You think that we need somebody else helping us with it?
That's correct, what he was just saying. Under the program, and is this one on? Okay. We have this joint group looking at all the different grants that are available, and I know Commissioner Lewis has a directive later. We're going to talk about some of the things. So some are going directly from the state. Some the utilities themselves are applying for. As I appreciate this one, and it's like heat and homes are different acronyms that stand for different things, but the way the federal law was set up, it said the funds are distributed to the state energy office. And actually last year, the state energy office has always been the Department of Natural Resources. We think of it as oil and gas, mining, that type of stuff, but actually the office was changed this past session to the state Department of Natural Resources and Energy. So it's the state equivalent, I guess, of the DOE, and we're like the state equivalent of the FERC, would probably be the best way to describe it. So that's the way the federal law was set up. They're the ones who get that funding. And it's a little bit different than our energy efficiency programs, as I appreciate it, but they can work together.
And the DNR is an appointed position, is that right?
Correct.
And we're elected over here as the
Correct.
Public Service Commission. I think we don't need the DNR handling our money. What would you say, Mr. Lewis?
I would agree with you. I think this is why this conversation is important, because I think what you're highlighting is how our own energy efficiency rules can complement the program, because as I've had multiple conversations with the State Energy Office, and my office has been directly engaged in the application process. And to my appreciation, I mean, the IRA dictated that it went to the State Energy Office, which happens to be in the Department of Natural Resources. So that wasn't, I don't think, a choice of the state. That was kind of, if we wanted this federal money, we had to go there. But I think the point that you are highlighting in this presentation today is that the rules that we are currently debating or could create could be very much a complement to ensure the exact concerns of my colleagues are met, because then if we are braiding these funds together, not only do we bring parity and equity, we also could bring significant savings to Louisianians by touching some of the funds that we have available, funds that the Louisiana Housing Corporation has under their energy efficiency weatherization programs. I think that's been one of the significant problems that I've had. We have a lot of money to help Louisianians significantly lower their energy burden, but it's in different places. And I think the beauty of what this application could do is finally bring us to the table, as our secretary was talking about, to look at all the pots of money and create a system where we are complementing each other rather than competing with each other to really bring some savings to Louisiana. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, and not to necessarily speak for Sydney here, but there are plenty of contractors who provide energy efficiency services who are eager to access and utilize these funds. And however that is handled with y'all, I'm happy to help in that process and provide my expertise. I have, read through this act back and forth more times than I can count. Have it saved, I know it very well. And I am, in terms of the implementation or who's managing it, I'm not as, I'm not attached to that. The thing that I'm looking for is, y'all may not be as familiar with this program, the Home Energy Rebates Program, the amount of money and the impact that this could have for qualified households, and we're eager to get it going, however, whatever form that takes.
Yeah, Commissioners,
Just a second, hold on. Go ahead, you finished?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think one of the options that we may have is bringing the State Energy Office to talk about those collaborations. I know Secretary Fry's had those conversations, I've had those conversations, but it may be beneficial to bring the State Energy Office to have a kind of a more presentation on how they are applying and what they're looking for in drafting that application to the federal government.
And we actually have a meeting with them, a kickoff meeting, the next couple of weeks with Ed O'Brien, who I'm sure you met with in their office. And Ed actually comes to our meetings sometimes to kind of watch, so I think he'd be more than willing to come and kind of explain how they see this happening. And they want to work directly with us. I mean, they made no bones about it to try and make sure our programs do complement each other. So I think we could definitely get him to come.
Mr. Scamato.
Yeah. One thing we're not talking about is that a lot of these sort of processes and plans were put forth under the current administration or are about to move into a new administration. And I think we have an opportunity to engage with Governor-elect Landry on how these funds are going to be managed and how they're going to be directed and what they're going to be. And I think that this sort of development of the state into this sort of inclusion of Department of Energy into DNR was probably done, I don't want to say incorrectly, but I don't think it was done in the best interest, because I think, like Commissioner Campbell said, is we don't need an additional sort of focused bureaucratic czar on this when we've been doing the job on this and each commissioner has been handling this. So I think what we ought to be focused on, and staff should focus on, is meeting with the transition team, talking about this particular issue on how we look at how we continue to express what we've done with energy efficiency, what we've done on the program, and how we should set this up to manage and do it under the constitutional construct of the state, and do it with, how we've been doing it and not creating another sort of unnecessary layer. And I think that would probably be well accepted by the new administration for us to move forward and, act as a primary on this. But instead of trying to, look at it under what is a current aspect, I think there's going to be significant changes under the new administration on bureaucracy and stuff like that. So I think we're going to be in a position to present ourselves in a way that makes sense to create, because as what I'm hearing from you is, whichever which way it comes, you're happy with it. But I think we need to present it to the administration new administration on how we see it the best way to flow. And if it's the best way to flow is for us to demonstrate what we've done, then so be it. And let's go do it that way.
So bottom line, you're willing to work with us.
I would love to work with you.
That's basically what I've heard up here is that we're open, you're open, and I'm not fighting y'all. I want to work with you. We just,
Absolutely.
We
Would
just
love to.
can't, Mr. Francis and I especially, representing as much of the rural area as we do, we can't be left out. And although it might be insignificant to some people, a little town like Shongaloo that you've never heard of, has people living there. I'll give you a little history lesson this morning. You need to hear this. All y'all need to hear this. Shongaloo is north of Minden, Louisiana. And years gone past, they've graduated, of the graduating class, 16 or 18 people. You listening to me? All of them went to college. And at one time, LSU main campus had 3 deans, different disciplines, from Shongaloo. 3 of the deans at LSU campus all graduated from Shongaloo High School. Wow. That's something for a little bitty town, you know? And they are very proud of their town. And I'm proud of them, so I don't want them to be left out, and that's the same thing Mr.
Yes,
Francis is saying.
Chairman and I have 42 parishes of the 64, two of the largest districts.
It's a lot. But anyway, we appreciate it, and we just make that, and not threatening, we want to work with you.
Absolutely.
We'll all work together, it'll work out fine. Thank you.
I would love to meet with anyone in the town of Shongaloo and help out in whatever way I can. That's essentially the business.
Quick
that I'm
question for
offering.
you,
Go ahead.
and you may not be the appropriate party. Do you know when the state's application needs to be submitted to the Department of Energy for review to unlock the funds? I'm just trying to make sure we all kind of understand the timeline of the process here in the with the Department of Energy.
We need to tell them that we plan to apply by August 16th, 2024, and we need to complete the application by January 31st of 2025.
Perfect. So we are in the kind of drafting of that application phase, or we should be in that drafting. I know
I'd say
you're
we're in
not
the
there.
consideration. There's also contractor training grants, which also complement these programs, and that application is due January 31st. So I believe DNR at O'Brien specifically is focused on that right now.
The contractor part.
Contractor part, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, let's see, where are we?
Show us what page you're on since they're not numbered.
Yeah,
You on a pink house?
I want to jump back to the, it says SCEP on the right side there. I want to highlight that,
I got you. Go
you
ahead.
there, that this program, in addition to the funding, the federal funds for the upgrades themselves, there's funding for the administration of the program. So it will not be at any additional cost to ratepayers. It will be paid federally. So the next page here have a bunch of company names here, icons.
Gotcha.
Yep, and we're all eager to unlock these funds. Everyone that I've spoken to is excited about it. I brought with me Mr. Sidney Lee to speak a little bit about the impact that home energy rebates may have on his business. Go ahead, Sidney.
Back in the early 2000s, there was a state program called the HERO program, which if we increased the efficiency of the consumer's home, they got a $2,000 rebate, okay? That lasted for all the way till after Katrina. Actually, FEMA kicked in another $1,000 after Katrina, so it was $3,000. Plus, they had the federal tax credit, so the homeowner could get up to $3,500. That helped my business immensely, and of course, my competitors also. With this is like $8,000 towards $8,000 grant towards the purchase of a high-efficiency HVAC system, which, of course, your HVAC system is your largest user of electricity in your home, bar none. So this would help a lot of folks who couldn't afford that upgrade, and that would help my business exponentially and my competitors. So it works.
Nick Persich of Johnstone Supply was going to be here. Unfortunately, a couple employees had family emergencies, but he shared with me that programs such as this would help mitigate the off-season for them, and he wouldn't have to lay off as many folks. Contractors that he works with wouldn't have to lay off folks. It would help smooth that out for him. There are also letters of support appended at the end of this program, at the end of the slides here that y'all can take a look at. Okay, so my ask for you, which we've already talked about, is to incorporate this program in some way in the planning for your own energy efficiency measures, the ones you have in place and the ones you have coming up. And that people like me are in position to help. As I said, I know exactly what's available in this program. I know it inside and out. I'm building a business on this. I have a direct financial stake in making sure that this is applied sensibly, whatever that looks like. And I've also been in communication with many affected groups who are eager to see this in place. Everyone from SELACACI, which is the Southeast Louisiana Coalition of the AC industry, to Housing Louisiana. There are a number of groups that we've talked to about what this could look like and the effect it would have with them. So I invite you to ask me at any time to come meet with y'all, to answer any questions you may have. We're just really eager to move this forward because there's a lot of money sitting there that could help a lot of people.
I appreciate you communicating this to us because I'm a real believer in communication. I'm going to tell you a story. It's a true story. Brandon can I got this picture. You mentioned Katrina. Some of these people have heard this story. If you had to hear it again, it's good for you. I got this picture of a room. Did I tell you about it? In a room, there was 3,000 water moccasins in this room. They were just all on top of each other. Isn't that right, Brandon? Shake your head, Brandon. You know it's right. They were 3,000 water moccasins, they were this deep in a room. So I sent a letter to the chairman of FCC. This guy calls me on Sunday. I pick up the phone. Hey, that's the chairman. I say, okay, how you doing? He said, I'm fine. Where are these snakes? I said, man, they're everywhere. You can't walk around. You see them everywhere in New Orleans. They're all on the corners now. He said, what can I do for you? I said, I need some money. Sent $25 million down here. $25 million on a picture of some snakes. So you never know about, like you're talking about, communicating with people in Washington or whatever for cell phone service to help people. Well, I've never seen so damn many snakes in my life, and I didn't know, but he asked me where are these snakes? I said, everywhere you walk in New Orleans, you step on them, you know?
Felt like Indiana
million.
Jones.
Was it 30 million or 25 million?
Foster, I don't remember the exact number, but it was quite a bit. It was for emergency lifeline cell phones for people who were displaced.
So the moral of the story, communicating with the people who have the money helps. And the people in New Orleans needed it because they were out of telephone service. So, chairman called me. I'm at home and I get a phone call from the chairman. Big deal. And that just adds to your story a little bit. If you ever want to use that, you can. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Does anybody have any other questions? Thank y'all. Very nice.
So just a couple of housekeeping items. We will have the presentation posted on our website later today for anybody who wants to view it and look into the information a little bit more. And I did forget one item is deferred, and it's still under Exhibit 11, and it's the update on the Project Cypress Direct Air Capture Hub located in Southwest Louisiana. That is deferred until November.
Wait, would you repeat that again? Which item on 11?
The update on the Project Cypress Direct Air Capture Hub.
Okay, and the other one? Anything else deferred?
No, sir.
Just Cypress?
Just
Okay.
Cypress.
Mr. Chairman,
That's all right.
I want to bring attention to one fact here in Mr. Scametta's area. We need an energy efficiency upgrade on this building. get some better lighting in here. I can hardly read my paper.
I guess it's ambience. But I will tell you that this particular facility is participating in the Energy Power Through program to produce extra electricity at peak requirements, and also is a redoubt for emergency responders in hurricane programs. So it is actually participating in the Power Through program that Energy is doing. So they are, and many thanks to the Copeland Enterprises and Al Copeland Jr. for hosting us at this facility. So thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So exhibit number 2 is docket number T36689. This is the Commission versus Pelican Movers alleged violation of revised statute 45-161 through 180.1 by engaging in activities related to moving household goods prior to complying with requirements of revised statute 45-164E and general order dated March 16, 2021, occurring on or between September 2nd, 2022 and October 2nd, 2022. It's a discussion and possible vote pursuant to Rule 57 on an affidavit and stipulation executed by the carrier, so this will need 2 votes. As a result of the complaint submitted to transportation staff, a citation was issued to Pelican Movers on March 9, 2023, based upon the aforementioned allegations and violations. In response to the citation, the owner of the company executed an affidavit and stipulation admitting to the violations alleged in the citation and agreed to the imposition of a $1,000 fine and $25 citation fee, with $500 being suspended, contingent on the following conditions: that the carrier not be found guilty, enter a plea of guilty, or enter a plea of no contest to any of the rules and regulations of the Commission for a period of 1 year from the date of the executed affidavit and stipulation, agree to refund the full amount charged to the customer of $2,827 for moving services performed on or about September 2nd, 2022, execute the affidavit and stipulation, and cease engaging in activities related to moving household goods until such time as the common carrier certificate is issued to Pelican Movers. Staff recommends that the Commission, 1, exercise its original and primary jurisdiction under Rule 57 to consider the affidavit and stipulation, and 2, accept the affidavit and stipulation executed on August 3rd, 2023 for fines and fees totaling $525.
And so I need a motion to bring this
Make
up.
a motion, we move 57 on exhibit number 2.
I'll second it. There was a motion and a second. Motion by Mr. Francis, second by me, Foster Campbell, Chairman. That shocks the hell out of you, doesn't it? No
Chairman,
objection.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the recommendation of the staff on this number 2.
Mr. Francis makes a motion to accept staff recommendation. I'll second it. Is there any objection? If there's none, it's passed. Number 3, correct?
Exhibit number 3 is docket number T36704. It's the Commission versus Title Tank. It's an alleged violation of revised statute 45-161 through 180.1 by operating intrastate without commission authority to transport non-hazardous oil fill waste on 8 counts, allegedly occurring on or between February 1st, 2022 through February 21st, 2022. It's also a discussion and possible vote pursuant to Rule 57 on the affidavit and stipulation executed by the carrier, so this will also need 2 votes. As a result of a complaint submitted to transportation staff, a citation was issued to Title Tank on March 30th of 2023 based on the aforementioned allegations and violations. And in response to that citation, the Vice President of the company executed an affidavit and stipulation admitting to the violations alleged in the citation and agreed to the imposition of a $16,000 fine and $25 citation fee, with $8,000 being suspended, contingent on the following conditions: not being found guilty, entering a plea of guilty, or entering a plea of no contest to any of the rules and regulations of the Commission for a period of 1 year from the date of the affidavit and stipulation, cease all Commission-regulated operations and not operating under other motor carriers' common carrier certificates, including common carrier certificate number 8276, and further understands that owner-operator leases must comply with the Commission's leasing rules, agrees that it shall implement changes to its corporate training policy whereby all employees will receive an orientation on the Commission-related statutes, rules, and orders, and return the notarized affidavit and stipulation and pay the fines to the Commission by August 31st, 2023. Staff recommends that the Commission exercise its original and primary jurisdiction under Rule 57 to consider the affidavit and stipulation and accept the affidavit and stipulation executed on August 21st, 2023 for fines and fees totaling $8,025.
I need a motion. I'll make a motion to bring this up under Rule 57.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Francis. Is there any objection? No objection. That's your area, Mr. Francis.
I move that we accept staff recommendation on exhibit 7. Exhibit 3, sorry.
I'll second. No objections? Number 4. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to compliment Ms. Burrell at your department on handling these two issues. I think you did a real good job. Thank you.
Exhibit number 4 is docket number T36708. This is the Commission versus Majestic Vibes on the Bayou. It's an alleged violation of General Order dated April 25th, 2012 by engaging in activities related to transporting passengers prior to the issuance of a common carrier certificate as a common carrier by motor carrier subject to the Commission's jurisdictions as provided by revised statute 45-161 through 180.1. It's a discussion and possible vote pursuant to Rule 57 on an affidavit and stipulation executed by the carrier. This will also need 2 votes. As a result of a complaint submitted to transportation staff, a citation was issued to Majestic Vibes on March 31st, 2023, based on the aforementioned allegations and violations. In response to the citation, the owner of the company executed an affidavit and stipulation admitting to the violations alleged in the citation and agreed to the imposition of a $1,000 fine, a $25 citation fee, with $500 being suspended, contingent on the following conditions. 1, not being found guilty, entering a plea of guilty, or entering a plea of no contest to any of the rules and regulations of the Commission for a period of 1 year, filing an application with the Commission and obtaining Commission's certificate of authority to operate, cease engaging in activities related to transportation of passengers until such time as the common carrier certificate is issued, pay all fines and fees by September 30th of 2023. Staff recommends that the Commission exercise its original and primary jurisdiction under Rule 57 to consider the affidavit and stipulation and accept the affidavit and stipulation executed on September 7th, 2023 for fines and fees totaling $525.
Move to take up number 457.
I'll second it. It's a motion by Mr. Francis, second by Mr. Campbell. No objection. It's passed. You make
Move that we accept number 4 of the staff's recommendation.
You make a motion to accept staff recommendation. Is that what you said?
Yes.
I'll second it. Is there any objection? Hearing none. Number 5. Passed.
Exhibit number 5 is docket number S36943. It's CenterPoint Energy Resources request for approval of second amended and restated asset management agreement with BP Energy Company. It's a discussion and possible vote on a staff report. CenterPoint submitted a letter to the Commission on July 20th of 2023 requesting the Commission expresses non-opposition to the second amended and restated asset management agreement within Louisiana entered into with BP Energy Company on March 30th of 2023. Notice of the matter was published in the Commission's official bulletin, which expired without any interventions. CenterPoint owns and operates natural gas distribution systems throughout the United States and is engaged in the distribution and sale of natural gas to customers located in several Louisiana parishes. The AMA requires CenterPoint to release to BP certain rights under the no notice transportation and storage service agreement with Gulf South and purchase certain supplies of gas from BP. And in turn, BP provides firm gas delivery to CenterPoint and manages the refill of the storage throughout the term of the AMA. BP is the sole supplier of gas to CenterPoint and serves as its agent for the purpose of submitting gas nominations and scheduling instructions to Gulf South. Among other considerations, CenterPoint receives guaranteed monthly payments from BP under an agreed-upon schedule for the duration of the AMA. The Commission expresses non-opposition to the original agreement in order number S31146, and the agreement has been amended several times with the 4th Amendment set to expire April 30th of 2023. Staff reviewed CenterPoint's request and responses to formal discovery and issued a report and recommendation on October 4th, 2023. As set forth in that report, CenterPoint and its customers have benefited since the agreement with BP became effective, and CenterPoint accurately anticipates those benefits, and the AMA ensures that these benefits continue for CenterPoint and its customers, and there is a guaranteed monthly asset payments continue and will be shared on a 50-50 basis. On October 4th, 2023, CenterPoint filed its correspondence into the record noting its non-opposition to staff's report. Staff therefore recommends that the Commission accept the staff report filed October 4th, 2023, recommending Commission approval of the second amended and restated asset management agreement Louisiana as being in the best interest of CenterPoint customers.
Move to accept staff recommendation.
There's a motion by Mr. Scametta,
Second.
by Mr. Francis, that we accept the staff recommendation. Is there any objections? Hearing no objections, it's passed. Number 6.
Exhibit number 6 is docket number U35441. This is SWEPCO's application for approval of a change in rates, extension of formula rate plan, and other related relief. It's a discussion and possible vote on a budget increase for J. Kennedy and Associates due to a scope expansion. The Commission issued order number U35441 in February of 2023, accepting a partial stipulated settlement between staff and SWEPCO. The settlement was considered partial because it left one contested issue for the administrative law judge related to net operating loss ADIT. And on July 19th, ALJ for Swivel issued her final recommendation for commission consideration, which recommended that SWEPCO seek a private letter ruling from the Internal Revenue Service regarding a potential normalization violation, and that SWEPCO shall coordinate with staff on drafting the request. The commission considered the ALJ's recommendation at its August 2023 B&E and accepted that recommendation. Coordination with SWEPCO to draft a private letter ruling to the IRS was not in the original scope of work contemplated by Jay Kennedy when it was retained by the Commission at the January 2020 B&E. Thus, staff solicited Jay Kennedy for additional budget to cover the coordination and drafting of the private letter ruling with SWEPCO and to submit that to the IRS. Based on staff solicitation, Jay Kennedy submitted the following proposed budget: $88,400 in fees and $1,300 in expenses for a total budget not to exceed of $89,700. Staff recommends that the Commission approve the budget increase of J. Kennedy and Associates of $88,400 in fees and $1,300 in expenses for a total budget not to exceed of $89,700 due to a scope expansion.
I'll make a motion that we accept staff recommendation.
Second.
Second by Mr. Scametta. Is there any objection? No objections. Next, it's passed. And number 7.
So exhibits 7, 8, and 9 are very similar to one another, but we can either take them up together. I can read all the NRAs.
I'm going to have questions for each co-op and each attorney representing the co-ops.
So we'll just keep them separate. That's
Yeah,
completely
I would
fine.
appreciate that.
So exhibit number 7 is docket number U36514. This is Concordia Electric Cooperative, NextEra Energy Market, and Mondoose Solar's joint application for approval of long-term power supply agreements. It's a discussion and possible vote on an ALJ recommendation. Currently, Concordia serves its members through a full requirements power service and supply agreement with Louisiana Generating, a subsidiary of CoopCo, and that expires on March 31st, 2025. And there's also a wholesale power purchase contract for hydroelectric power through Southwestern Power Administrator on behalf of the United States Department of Energy that is expected to be renewed when it expires in 2032. In this proceeding, Concordia seeks to replace the LaGen PSSA with a full requirements wholesale power supply and service agreement with NextEra Energy Marketing for a period of 9.75 years to begin on April 1st, 2025 in the Mondoose Solar Project, 150 megawatt solar generating resource owned by NextEra Energy Marketing affiliate Mondoose Solar to be located in Point Copee Parish, and from which Concordia will purchase 25 megawatt capacity and energy through a 25-year purchase power agreement. If approved, the NextEra agreements will supply all of Concordia's capacity and energy requirements beginning on April 1st, 2025, net of the SWPA contract. CoopCo and Energy Louisiana timely intervened in this proceeding with ALAC and EP2 Consulting requesting interested party status. A joint hearing was held in this manner with the nearly identical proceedings in dockets number U36515 and U36516 filed by Point Copee Electric Membership Corporation and Southwest Louisiana Electric Membership Corporation. No party seriously contested the cooperative's compliance with the MBM order, but Entergy opposed the certification due to the lack of identifiable physical generating capacity associated with the NextEra PSA. Similar to the position taken in the proceedings initiated by 1803 Electric Cooperative, Dixie Electric Membership Cooperative, and JDEC, Entergy argues that the Commission should impose a minimum capacity threshold on all Louisiana utilities and that approval of the NextEra PSA will jeopardize resource adequacy in Louisiana. Commission staff recommends certification of the NextEra PSA subject to conditions and that the cooperatives have agreed upon, but recommends disapproval of the Mondoose Solar PPA because asymmetrical pricing in the contract. Entergy did not take a position on the Mondoose Solar PPA, and CoopCo did not take a position on either of the agreements. Based upon the evidence and testimony presented in the proceeding, the administrative law judge recommends that the Commission adopt the final recommendation of the ALJ and draft order issued October 6, 2023, which contains the following ordering language. Concordia has complied and met with the requirements of the Commission's MBM order. The NextEra PSA serves the public convenience and necessity and should therefore be certified under the Commission's 1983 general order, subject to the following conditions. The joint applicants accept all risk of changes in Commission rules, specifically including a potential requirement for owned and/or contracted for generation being procured to meet future capacity needs without the benefit of grandfathering. Joint applicants acknowledge and agree that any future change made to the NextEra PSA based on changing regulations is subject to Commission review and approval, including without limitation. At the conclusion of docket number R36263, The joint applications will make a filing with the Commission so that the Commission may consider the impacts of its decision in docket number R36263 on its decision in this docket on the PSA and whether or not any amendment is required, including but not limited to changes to the PSA, changes affecting the pricing mechanism for the sale of the capacity and/or energy and/or deliverability or reporting requirements, so that the Commission may take any action it deems appropriate. Joint applicants retain the obligation to prudently manage the NextEra PSA. Joint applicants agree to annually report to the Commission information related to all decisions made to the price and/or procure capacity to meet the Cooperative's future load needs, including information outlined in the pre-filed direct testimony of staff witness Mr. Susung, HSPM confidential version, page 54 through 57. All prudently incurred costs with NextEra PSA are deemed eligible for rate recovery by the Cooperative, subject to the Commission's review and further determination at a later date in a separately docketed rate proceeding, with the expiration of and removal from rates of the costs associated with the current power supplier, and that the Mondu Solar PPA is not approved at this time. However, the Commission may determine that the Mondu Solar PPA serves the public convenience and necessity and should therefore be certified as prudent in accordance with the Commission's 1983 General Order upon review of the filing by joint applicants within 60 days of the issuance of this order, which contains the following: a quantification of the effects of the price increases and/or decreases discussed in fact of finding number 22, an assessment of the potential savings associated with the Inflation Reduction Act, and a proposal for flowing any identified savings to the Cooperative. That is the ALJ's final recommendation. We do have one card for Mr. Larry Hand to speak on this matter as well.
Is there a motion?
Actually, I have questions. So I'd like to speak to Co-op's attorney and to NextEra's attorney.
Mr. You want all the co-ops?
Well, one at a time. We're going to just do them one at a time. Instead of doing them, all at once, we'll just go one at a time. So the first one is...
Commissioner, I'm sorry. Will everyone please introduce themselves for the record and sign a yellow card? If you're attorney, please just sign the white clipboard.
Right, so the first one is Concordia, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So y'all can just take your time signing on if you need to.
My name is Russell Purvis. I am the attorney for Concordia Electric. I have my co-counsels who assisted throughout this matter, Mr. Glenn Edwards and Mr. Christopher Pasecki. And Mr. Dwayne Bailey is the manager of Concordia Electric.
And counsel for NextEra is who?
Good morning, Brian Murphy, counsel for NextEra Energy Marketing and Mondu Solar in this docket.
Okay. Y'all need another chair? We can get one for you, so that's okay. Their staff is going to grab one for you. I'm just going to ask you some pretty straightforward questions. As you know, as we move forward, we're sort of at a cart before the horse moment with the ongoing movement of the minimum capacity order that we have not completed, but we have a sort of preliminary suggested amount that's coming out. Personally, and just as a initial singular commissioner comment, I think it's difficult to run a state promising an economy where we promise them they'll have 90% of the power they need to run. I think we're going to have a discussion about why we need to have 100% minimum capacity order and have it within at least a traditional region of deliverable assets of power. Simply because if we want to run an industry, if we want to run commercial, if we want to run residential and have an economy, we got to promise the people that we're going to deliver power, because that's it's the thing that drives our state. So, but the questions I have are basically about understanding the obligation of both the co-op and the power provider as we move forward. And the other co-ops that are sitting there are going to be listening because it's going to be the same basic questions. So, and my question, I guess we can go with co-ops first, Russell, and I'll just, or Mr. Purvis, which is, you understand that you're, approaching this before we have the minimum capacity order completed, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As we move forward, do you, on behalf of your client, accept that there is a risk of change in the commission rules, and that specifically including potential requirement for owned and contracted for generation that's going to be procured to meet future capacity needs without the benefit of any grandfathering in of you on any particular vote at this time.
Commissioner, that's correct, and we agreed to that in the proceeding before the administrative law judge, and we will accept whatever ruling it comes out of that docket and comply with it.
So just to be clear, if anything changes, it will void whatever contract you have as far as pricing and elements that has to comply with any future commission rules. You're going to have to comply with future commission rules, whatever.
Commissioner, I can answer.
You might have to use the microphone. Just say your name.
Glenn Edwards, Commissioner. We have agreed to comply with commission orders. We have agreed to comply with any future commission orders, as has our provider, Nextera. While I think it would be premature to say that any future commission orders would void our contract.
Not to void the contract, but
We
the pricing,
we
elements.
understand that future commission orders may change our pricing and may require even contract amendments to accommodate commission rules, but we are committed as Concordia Electric, and my understanding from Nextera is they are committed as well. Set it on the record that we will comply with the commission's orders.
Do you unconditionally accept the risk of change to in commission rules regarding the Nextera Energy Marketing Power Service Agreement?
I mean, certainly, Commissioner, we know we live by final commission orders. I mean, that, we certainly reserve our right to participate in the rulemaking processes and the orders and to state our position, but when an order is final, and we are under the jurisdiction of the commission, we will live by it.
Right, I'm not mincing words. I'm asking, do you unconditionally accept participation? Do you unconditionally accept all the risk of change in the commission rules?
Concordia unconditionally accepts.
Okay.
And, we know who our friends are.
No,
and
well, I get it. I just want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a position to where later on, if things go sideways, that there's an argument that nobody approached this with clear eyes, okay? And that's the most important thing. And you understand what accepting the risk means. Is that correct, Counsel?
That's correct, Commissioner. We understand that, and we will comply.
Okay. And do you realize that the risk that you're accepting, it will include potential changes in pricing?
It's difficult to project it, but we will accept if that does so.
Right. It's just that if it happens, you understand that you're accepting that.
Yes,
Okay.
Commissioner.
Because I want to make sure, I just want to make sure everybody understands that you're facing this with clear foresight.
We are.
Okay. And my question's for you, Mr. Murphy, for Nextera. The same thing. Does Nextera unconditionally accept the risk of all changes in the commission rules regarding the Nextera Energy Marketing Power Service Agreement as it pertains to future commission rules as they may change?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any provision in the Nextera Energy Marketing contract as it stands today that would restrict the cooperative from participating in any LPSC established energy efficiency program?
No.
Okay. Is there any provision in the Nextera contract as it stands today that would restrict the cooperative from participating in any LPS required green tariff?
No.
Okay. Is there any provision in the Nextera Energy Marketing contract that would restrict the cooperative from participating in any LPSC required demand response program?
No.
Okay. And is there any provision in the Nextera Energy Marketing contract as it stands today that would restrict cooperative from purchasing energy from a qualified facility under a PERPA agreement?
No.
And will Nextera Energy Marketing commit to procure identifiable physical generation to support the cooperative load it seeks to serve under the power supply agreement?
If that's what the commission rules and the MCO docket requires, that's what we will do.
So that's a yes?
It's not a yes today until there's a final rule.
No, but if the rule establishes that, you will agree to do that?
I would say not only would it agree to it, but to your questions before, there's nothing in the contract that prohibits that. So the contract is flexible enough to not only comply and work with the co-ops on an MCO rule, any of the other rules that come in the next 10 years, this contract was specifically made flexible so that we can work with the co-ops to ensure they can comply and that we can comply.
Well, I'll just make it a real clear question.
Commissioner, excuse me, will you talk a little bit closer to your microphone, please?
Sure, it was getting a little feedback, so I was
Thank you.
trying to
Oh,
balance the feed. How's that? Is that okay? Where's tech? You okay with that? Okay. So I'll make it real clear again, just to make sure that we're not having a minced answer and a minced question. Does NextEra agree to procure identifiable physical generation to support the cooperative load it seeks to serve?
I understand the question. Thank you for the question. And if the commission rules in the MCO docket require that, the answer is yes.
Well, it's beyond what the commission rules. It's your intent as a service provider. Are you committed to procure identifiable physical generation?
Currently, we are committed to comply with the rules of MISO and this commission and FERC, and none of those rules require that. So currently, we would have the flexibility to use, as the term is used in MISO, ZRCs, and ZRCs are different from the language you're using. So if
I'm putting as few words
not,
in this question as possible, Counselor, so I'm going to just take that as a no.
I'm happy to say it as a no because that is not required by the
Okay.
law, and we're not going to
All
do
right.
it until it's
Well,
required
that's
by the
fine.
law.
So does NextEra Energy Marketing, will you commit to obtaining generator performance information that can be used to provide the cooperative and the commission information in the event of a MISO declared max gen event?
Thank you again. Similarly, if that is required by this commission, we would work with the co-ops. In essence, to have a discussion on this, we would comply with that. What that compliance would require is that we have a counterparty that is willing to do it. If the counterparty is not willing to provide that performance data, that would essentially limit the amount of counterparties we can contract with. So the answer, again, is going to be yes if it's required by law, and with the understanding that there will be counterparties in the market or generators in the market that will not be willing to provide that information, and they will not be contracted with.
For the benefit of the public, define counterparty.
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking me for that clarification. When I say counterparty, it's a generator in the market. It could be an independent power producer. It could be a utility outside the state of Louisiana. It could be a qualifying facility. It could be an industrial customer with capacity that they could sell. To your point, they would have to be willing to provide the performance data if that's required, whether it was required by FERC or MISO or this commission. And if they weren't willing to provide that data, they could not be contracted with.
So if they contract with you, they are subjecting themselves to the rules of this commission?
If they contract with us and they could not, let's put it in the words I would use, is if they could not comply with the rules of this commission, they would not be able to sell us. We would not be able to contract with them to supply the power.
So let's
Right,
put it in present tense, not will
Yeah.
be. So if a third-party power provider, known as a counterparty, cannot comply with the rules of the Public Service Commission, Louisiana Public Service Commission, you will not contract with them.
Correct.
Okay. One second, I'm just going through my last stuff.
You have another question?
Yeah, I'm just thinking 1 second, Foster, 1 second. So this is more for the co-ops, and I'm done with the next era question. The risk is the big risk, and I want y'all to understand, and I want you to understand your acceptance of the risk, is by moving now instead of waiting until the MCO order is completed, that you understand that the risk that you're facing is potential price shift, and the understanding that you'll, accepting that risk. That's the big thing. And I just want to ask you, are you prepared to accept that risk?
Yes, Your Honor, Concordia is prepared to accept the risk of whatever ruling that this commission makes, and we always will do that.
Okay. All right, so I'm done with my questions.
When you're done, that's all.
Both of y'all got questions?
I do.
Okay. Excuse me.
Oh, you want to go first,
No,
Mr. Chair?
go.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let me ask one thing. Basically, the big argument here is that the co-ops are leaving some of the major companies, right? I'm sorry. Basically, y'all are going to another provider of electricity, is that correct? Correct. Right. And the people you bought it from before are not real happy about you leaving, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So we got the people that are providing electricity not real happy. The co-ops are leaving them because it's big customers, but the co-ops are leaving them because they can save the consumers money.
That's correct. It's about 25%. We feel that our consultants have given us that.
So we have, again, I go to Mr. Francis and we have a lot of people in the rural areas who rely on co-ops. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And usually these people who live out in the rural areas don't make as much money as the people who live in the urban areas, usually. That's a fact. So what you're doing and what the rest of the co-ops are doing, they're seeking cheaper electricity, reliable, cheaper electricity. And that's what the argument is about today. Can y'all really provide the electricity at what you said you could?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you feel confident you can?
Yes, Commissioner, that's.
And the people that are mad are the investor-owned companies that sold you electricity and they're losing you. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know if I can characterize their.
I don't think an investor-owned company.
Well,
sells
I'm
you
saying that. So basically what we have here is people who.
You're not served by an investor-owned company.
They're searching for electricity. Y'all have done a good job getting out, getting bids, and you've come up with a source of electricity you feel sure can provide the people in the rural areas, basically. There's some urban area, Dixie Electric and your electric, but most of all is rural areas. Y'all feel very confident that you can provide the electricity at a cheaper price. That's in a nutshell what this is about.
We are confident that we will provide reliable electricity at a cheaper price.
Yeah. Commissioner Campbell, I don't want you to misconstrue what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the issue of them getting a new contract. What I'm talking about is particularly, we have the minimum capacity order that's coming probably early next year.
I got it.
Which is going to establish some price differentials. They've got a contract, they're doing their thing, nothing's going to change that. And by the way, I think you're served by CLECO, aren't you?
CLECO-Cajun.
Yeah, well, CLECO-Cajun is not a investor-owned utility. It's a private utility. But the point is, we're going to eventually decide what a minimum capacity order is. We are going to make those decisions, and it's going to probably have an impact on pricing to some degree.
What I was talking about before you butted in.
Let me finish my sentence.
No, I'm not, because you butted into me, Mr. Scametta. You've done it 3 times today.
Well,
Three
actually,
times.
I'm going to just keep talking.
So I'm not going to.
So my point is.
Your point is that you're out of order.
Well,
That's the point. You
only-
did it with Mr. Francis.
Well-
You've done it with everybody today. You come in and just start taking over. Now, I want to be nice to you. I'm doing my dead level best to be nice. If you would raise your hand, I would recommend you. I'll say, okay, Mr. Scametta, I've done it, and I'll be glad to. But you just can't rudely take over a conversation when other people are talking. That's rude.
You're mischaracterizing it.
So anyway, all I'm saying, basically, the bottom line is this, in my mind, in my simple mind. You guys went out and you provided electricity, or you think you can, and you say you can, and we're depending on you at a cheaper price for people in the rural electric. That's it. And the people who have, that are not real happy with you are SWEPCO, CLECO, and Entergy. That's a fact. So we got a lot of argument going on, but that's the bottom line. To me, and that's what I think.
Commissioner?
Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A quick question for staff. In
Commissioner
your-
Campbell, when I have a chance?
I'll proceed. Wasn't it your determination that this is a limited certification proceeding and not the venue to litigate or preempt any possible future MCO order? Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Justin Bell on behalf of staff, that's correct, Commissioner.
So thank you. To Concordia, would you agree that this agreement was intentionally, structured to adapt new regulatory requirements related to capacity obligations, that you left yourself in a way that would comply if there were other rules? Would you agree with that?
Yes, we will comply with any ruling that this commission makes.
And you would also say that as an applicant, you did not seek to grandfather the agreement to avoid MCO or any other rulemaking?
That's correct. That is part of the stipulated order that was entered into by the administrative law judge.
For next era, I have a question. Do you have any backup plans if we cannot reach an agreement on the PPAs? So if the applicant and staff are fundamentally opposed or unlikely to agree, then how do the consultants see a second best option playing out?
Commissioner Lewis, this is related to the one issue in dispute on the power purchase agreement?
Correct, yes.
First, I'm hopeful that we can reach agreement with staff. I think it's somewhat of a misunderstanding, which happens in litigated proceedings where adversaries or cross-examination can be misunderstood. So we are working diligently with the staff to iron out any differences we have. There's two backup plans. Currently, the full requirements contract, if the PPA was not approved or the solar project was not built, would make up for the differential, and that's in all three dockets with all three power purchase agreement. The co-op attorneys, ourselves and staff, as a procedural matter, we would try to get something before you all to decide ultimately, even if there was a difference of opinion. I would state, I think, staff's suggestions during and observations during the proceeding have led us to rethink how to price the contract, and we've come up with a final and firm price that we believe does take into consideration two other issues, which one was the escalation clauses in the contract, and two, whether there are outstanding benefits that could flow back to customers. So in the end, even if we had a difference of opinion, Commissioner Lewis, we would present that to the commission to ultimately decide.
Thank you. I mean, because I think there is a desirable deal to be made here that we shouldn't lose out on it or negate 4 years of work because of a couple of loose ends. And so I would like to, and I think we are going to work to ensure that we can bring some resolve before the December meeting on the solar portion of this, because that portfolio, I think, would see greater capacity, diversity, and flexibility in our market. And I think, to Concordia's point, it would reduce ratepayers' bills. And I think that should be our ultimate solution here, is how can we provide a cheap, reliable power to our people in the state, and not just kind of get into the way that we've always done things. And so those were just the questions, but I just kind of also want to once again state that this is a very limited certification proceeding. This is not the MCO proceeding. We will have that proceeding. We are reading, you have submitted comments On that, we will get a final report, but I think we should not start to conflate. I mean, I think we are going there, but we have precedent on handling limited certification proceedings without a rulemaking being done, and I don't think we should take that into consideration in this conversation today.
Is that all? Mr. Francis, please.
Okay, my turn. Minimum capacity would be simply put, available electricity for the demand, wouldn't it? When you talk about minimum capacity.
Commissioner Francis, is that, we're looking at each other. I just want to make sure the question's for NextEra or for the co-ops.
Yeah, it's for NextEra. Let's talk about NextEra. Yeah.
And the question is whether minimum capacity is essentially making sure that electricity is going to the customers that need it.
Good. That's the right answer. I thought that's what I understood to be. I think we've all heard about we need more minimum capacity to make sure the lights don't go out. Wouldn't we all agree with that? And that I think most people in this room know that we're going to probably raise the minimum capacity. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Well, I can state on behalf of NextEra, we support resource adequacy measures of a commission, this commission, commissions in other states. So if this commission does come out as the discussion with Commissioner Scametta and I was leading to a minimum capacity, we're going to be supportive of that.
Right. And I would assume that the NextEra is prepared to do whatever they need to do to provide that under the terms of the contract that we're approving today, right?
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. And to that point, what I don't want to be lost is that I think one of the reasons we were selected by the co-ops is the expertise we have in this field of not only marketing. We're one of the largest generators in the United States. We're one of the largest utilities in the United States. And I wouldn't want it to be lost that if a MCO came out, I think we would make an excellent partner for the co-ops to ensure that they are able to comply with that order.
Well, I think a large
could commit to that. I would say that generally minimum capacity requirements that limit supply, just going back to the basic economics that we learned, first year in college, if you have less supply, generally prices go up when you have the same or more demand. So to Commissioner Scametta's, points on questions, there is a possibility, depending on what the final rule says, that the price in this MISO market, which limits the suppliers or limits the options for generation suppliers, could go up. So I couldn't say here today and commit that the price would be exactly the same. With that said, the contract is structured not as a fixed price, but as a flexible, what in the industry they call a hedging approach or stepped ladder approach, so that we're not putting all our eggs in one basket today. So 5 years from now, we'll have ability to be strategic in the market, whether MCO or not, a year from now, as well as throughout the 10-year term.
So after we sign this contract, if we have a minimum capacity increase that will change the rules, that could possibly affect the price that the co-ops will pay for their electricity, other than what we've agreed to today. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, that's good. That's what I thought Mr. Scametta was getting at. Is that true, Commissioner Scametta?
I don't know. I'm not recognized yet.
Okay. Well,
I'm just waiting.
Well, all right. Well, as the vice chairman, let me ask you to intervene there. Give you the microphone, please.
Okay. Well, basically, that's what I'm getting at. Obviously, two things. This isn't about, you're not buying your power from a different company, because first off, you weren't buying from an investor-owned utility. CLECO is a private company, so it's sort of irrelevant. You're going to be buying from an investor-owned utility, which is, I think, largely lost on some commissioners and some of the public. You know, you go from one investor-owned utility to another investor-owned utility, whose stock, I think you went down 67% the other day. So, you know, the issue is pretty simple for me, and it's that we are taking a step before we complete the task, and that's it. You know, you've made your contract, you've laid your case, it's done, okay? My problem with this is I don't want to see an outside company take advantage of the co-ops by coming back later and saying, oops. And that's my genuine concern about this, because the MCO order, I believe, is deficient. I don't see how a state can operate on selling 100% of the population that they can have 90% of the power they need. It's an impossibility. You tell your family, hey, live your life, but take 90% of the power you need. We're going to need to operate on 100% power at the lowest price possible, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so we can have an economy, so we can have jobs, so we can everything. So it's not about who you buy your power from and bad old utilities and all that. It's because you're going from one bad old utility to another bad old utility, if you want to look at it that way. It's from one person to another person. And if you save money, that's great, you know? And if you don't save money, well, shame on you. I mean, that's the decisions you made. But what I am saying is, and this is a question for staff, and so I guess Brandon or Catherine, when do you anticipate we will complete analysis and vote on the MCO order?
I'm going to punt that to Ms. Evans. She's the staff attorney working on the docket.
Ma'am?
Good morning, Commissioners. Lauren Evans on behalf of staff. We just received all of the comments from the stakeholders, and we're currently reviewing it. I don't have a specific end date, but as soon as possible.
So we're talking 2023, first quarter 24, second quarter 24? I mean, rough guess?
I would say first quarter 2024.
Okay. So, but then, and that's where my question to you, you know, Russell, is your contract is in place, but your contract begins operation in 3 years? When does it begin operation? 2025, April 1. 2.5 years, more or less. So there's no imperative to complete this contract other than ants in the pants, so to speak, if you can wait 1 quarter to find out what this MCO order is and solidify what pricing is really going to be. Because your contract still got, with Clico Cajun, is still going to be in place for a couple of years. That's my point, Commissioner Campbell, if you want to understand, is we are just not affecting a contract that's not going to go into place for a couple of years. We wait 6 months, and we will find out exactly what the MCO order is. We will find out exactly what the pricing potential is and the impact on the co-ops and the impact on the consumer. And that's why I just think this is premature. The fact that they have already decided who they're going to go with is done. That's irrelevant. So it's not anything about SWEPCO, Clico, Entergy, or any of that stuff. This is all about the potential price impact on the consumer and the potential supply mechanism for the consumer. And that's it. It's about hitting the switch on the wall, making sure there's power, and it's about making sure when that bill comes at the end of the month that it's the lowest potential price possible. I just don't want there to be surprises for you guys, the co-op, because, no offense, if somebody else rolls up their tent and walks away because they don't like it, well, then we got to start all over again and find a way to help you guys, right? But that's my thing is I just think this is premature. I'd rather wait until the end of the first quarter to get the MCO order done. And that's where I am on this. I just think it's premature. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not through yet. Mr. Purvis. It is true that if we change the minimum capacity order, the price of electricity is going to go up for our customers. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay, and you think the board, they all understand that you're going to sign a contract today, and we're probably going to raise the minimum capacity, and so that price is going to change. It's
That's correct.
putting it in real simple terms that our constituents can understand.
Yes, Commissioner. You know, when we have been on this for like over 2 years negotiating. It's been exhaustive, and we have, our consultants, Daymark, have reviewed this and reviewed the docket. But if we get another issue arises in 3 months, does that extend it? We live in changing times. The one constant in our life is change, and one thing that's going to come up will be other issues. We're not restricting the commission from regulating Concordia Electric in any way, and whatever new comes, or we will face it, and we will abide by whatever the ruling the commission has. That's the issue, but we need to get this completed, and then we go on and face whatever new developments are.
Ms. Evans, when do you think we'll know what minimum capacity order, what change we'll have? Do you got any idea?
I would probably have to defer that to Mr. Sissong, but I do think that there is a potential for costs to go up as a result of the MCO, but it's all about risk and getting the lights on.
Where's it, Lane here, Sisson here? When you think what's D-Day for that, Lane? I know it's a scientific guess.
Lane Sisson,
Why?
Consultant to the commission. As Ms. Evans just said, we got the responses back last week or the week before. We're going through them. Our goal is to turn them around. Some of the responses have requested a little more time and a little more actual physical discussion with staff, so we'll probably engage in those discussions. It would certainly be my goal to get the proposed rule out of our shop well before the end of this year, and then wherever the process goes from there, it would go. But that's the goal.
Okay, thank you. Well, Mr. Purvis, I know that we need to lock in these deals, and I understand that. And so when we do the minimum capacity order, which we probably are going to, and so that's going to make your contract be adjusted somewhat because of your supplier. Isn't that true?
Yes,
And
Commissioners.
so we're still, you could opt out of that contract at that time if it wasn't fair, couldn't you?
Well, I mean, we're committed.
I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just asking a lawyer.
Well, I'll let Mr. Edwards.
Let me say this, Commissioner Glenn Edwards, and to the point of the flexibility in the contract, while we all agree that how the MCO order comes down, it may well affect pricing in the market. There's no doubt about that. However, based on the work we've done and the approach we've taken, internally, we have looked at it, and we are comfortable that if there is some increase in market pricing because of the MCO, that increase is not going to fully eclipse the savings that we anticipate to have under this contract and under this approach. It may mean we have a little less savings than we anticipated we were going to have,
okay.
but we're still going to have savings, and
Well,
it is.
I support the work you've done and what your history on providing electricity for the contract, and signing these new contracts. I just want everybody to understand it. We're looking at reliability, so we're going to raise the minimum capacity order. We're probably going to do that, and that's what's going on all through MISO and SPP. It's for safety and reliability, and you sign a contract today and we change the rules, we could expect it. Our customers should expect that the prices are going to go up a little bit because of reliability. So in that way, I do support that, and I understand Commissioner Scometta's say, well, let's wait till we'll sign it off when we know what's for sure. But all the things you've done to sign these contracts and make these deals, I think it's time to say yes to it, and we'll see what happens in the future.
You want to make a motion?
So I'm making a motion we accept this.
All right, Brandon.
I'll second.
Thank you. The motion is second. You can't accept all three at one time.
Your mic,
Correct.
Commissioner.
No,
Yes.
Your mic.
And
Yeah, this is just for the Concordia, and then we'll take up the next
And-
two after that.
to staff, I'm
You have a
gonna
question?
oppose just on the basis of, I prefer to abstain for, just on a dilatory basis, but I'll have to oppose for vote.
Okay.
Because I'd rather just wait until we get the MCO order just to
Oh, wait,
make
well,
sure we hit
actually-
everything, but
Yeah,
we'll have to do
but before
that.
we do a final vote, Mr. Hand does have a yellow card in to speak on this matter.
Wait, we have
Wait,
somebody.
you can't, we can't, yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yeah.
Come on up. You're for this, right?
And
And
Foster,
Foster, you need to use your mic, please.
You've got the religion today.
No,
Wait.
you press the button. Is the green light on?
Mike's off. Push the button in the middle. There you
I
go.
got you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. Larry Hand with Entergy Louisiana. I'm joined by Aaron Murphy, who's counsel for Entergy Louisiana, not to be confused with Brian Murphy. I did want to speak to what we're talking about here today. I understand there's an MCO rule that's being contemplated, but what we're talking about here today is whether or not the NextEra Energy Marketing Power Supply Agreement is in the public interest. The PPAs regarding the solar resource, we have no concern with those. Our concern with the NextEra Power Supply Agreement is that it lacks a requirement for NextEra to provide any physical capacity to support the load. NextEra's obligation under that agreement is purely a financial one, which means NextEra will offer a price to the co-ops for capacity and energy. It'll be priced in accordance with the agreement, and NextEra will face MISO's market, capacity and energy, and they will settle up financially. I have no doubt that NextEra Energy Marketing will stand behind its financial obligations. That's what they do. They're a very large company. What concerns me is not for Entergy Louisiana and Commissioner Campbell. Entergy Louisiana does not serve the co-ops today as a wholesale supplier. They're served by Clico Cajun. So our interest here is not that we want to supply them, we're losing them. Our interest is resource adequacy for Louisiana. Resource adequacy in its simplest terms is making sure at every hour of the year there's an adequate amount of electricity that can be generated, transmitted, and delivered to homes and businesses in Louisiana. We have about 20,000 megawatts of load across the state. These cooperatives, not just the three here today, but all of the cooperatives you regulate, represent about 2,300 megawatts of peak winter load. We know today that with this last group of co-ops coming through, they are proposing to serve 2,300 megawatts of winter peak demand with a meager 400 megawatts of dispatchable capacity, and that comes from Magnolia CCGT that you approved as part of the 1803 portfolio. You have to ask yourself the question, where does the rest of the electricity come from? And we've heard over and over that there's a vast surplus of capacity in the MISO market in Zone 9. When you first approved the 1803 cooperative, they said, look, there's a vast surplus in Zone 9, no need to require physical capacity. At that time, the Zone 9 surplus in MISO was 1,700 megawatts approximately. And that was January of 2022 when you approved 1803. Go 10 months later in October of 2022 when you approved the DEMCO and JDEC contracts. Similar arrangement as to the one here today. At that point in time, the surplus in Zone 9 had fallen from 1,700 megawatts down to 1,000. So within that one season, you had lost 1,700 megawatts of this vast surplus that allowed them to rely on the market. As we sit here today, MISO changed to a seasonal construct, but in the summer season, the MISO Zone 9 capacity market is no longer in a surplus position. It's in a deficit position. So you have to be worried about where is this electricity going to be generated. We also know, and you've heard this from Entergy Louisiana, you've heard it from MISO, and now we're hearing it from your own staff and their MCO report. The supply and demand of generating capacity in Louisiana is dwindling. It's dwindling for a few reasons. One is load continues to grow, and we have a lot of growth opportunities ahead of the state if we can provide reliable and resource adequacy for the state. We also see that older generation, whether it's a coal unit or just older legacy gas units, they are deactivating because of their age. They're no longer economic to maintain and run. And lastly, the new generation coming online, with the exception of the Magnolia CCGT, it's largely proposed to be intermittent renewable resources, that you can't turn it on when the sun's not shining. You can't turn it on at night when the sun's not shining. And so those things lead you to a shortfall of generation that is looming, and your own staff in the MCO report did a survey of all the co-ops, IOUs, and CLECO-Cajun to assess what is the supply and demand of capacity in Louisiana, and they concluded that as soon as the winter 2024-2025 season, that Louisiana will have a deficit of capacity available, just looking at those factors. With regard to the summer season, they said that could happen as soon as 2028 in the summer, or even sooner, much sooner, if CLECO-Cajun decides to deactivate some of the units. So,
Larry?
Yes.
Who is the staff that wrote the report?
Mr. Sissing.
Okay, Lane, would you come up when you get a chance?
I'd like to also have the Point Coupé lawyer come up also.
And, you know, one of the things that concerns us with the NextEra Energy Marketing contract is NextEra, as a company, has affiliates that own generation, but NextEra Energy Marketing, according to their sworn testimony at the hearing, they own no generation, zero generation in the United States, have no plans to build generation in the United States. What I find just puzzling to me is you look at NextEra's affiliate in Florida, Florida Power and Light, one of the largest utilities in the United States. It has over 31,000 megawatts of identifiable physical generating capacity in its portfolio to serve its customers in Florida. All of it, 100%. And here, they have a contract that doesn't have any commitment from them to provide a single megawatt of physical identifiable capacity. And the issue can be solved in the MCO. My worry is the issue is here today. The MCO may never happen. It may not. But the public interest, it's bigger than the co-ops. It's bigger than Entergy Louisiana. It's bigger than CLECO Power. The decisions you make on resource adequacy, it affects every single electric consumer in Louisiana. That includes people in New Orleans, it includes municipally owned utilities. So this is not a decision that a cooperative or its board should be able to make by itself without understanding the repercussions across the state. And if there should be another generation shortfall and MISO has to shed load, they don't look to the co-op or the utility who failed to secure the right amount and type of resources. They shed load across the state. So Entergy New Orleans will get cut, even though they had nothing to do with this. They'll get their share. Entergy Louisiana, CLECO Power, every cooperative. And think about 1803 Cooperative. They're out there trying to do the right thing and acquire more physical capacity. They have another application pending before you regarding a Calpine contract for the Pine Bluff facility.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Are we re-arguing this case, basically? You're going through all the reasons why this is a bad deal. When we've spent 2 months, 2 years, get to the point. I mean, I know you're not for it. You work for Energy, and you're a fine man, and you do a good job. I know Energy's not for this. Everybody in this room knows Energy's not for it. Y'all got beat. You got beat. Now, I'm not going to be rude to you. Finish what you got to say. I got the point you're not for it. Everybody in this room knows that you're not for this. It's clear. But y'all have a problem today. There are some people who are for it. So let's get to it. And I'm not trying to be rude to you, but you're retrying a case that we've heard.
I'll wrap it up, Commissioner. I wanted the opportunity to speak to each of you so that you understood the resource adequacy implications that extend across the entire state. It's broader than the single co-op. And as long as you go into that eyes wide open, knowing the risks that are being undertaken here, that can affect everybody. And the last time we had a load shed event, we were all on a Zoom meeting, and Entergy, Mr. Philip May, got excoriated because the lights went out. Turned out, after the fact, we had the best performance of all the generation across the state. But yet our customers were cut.
Y'all have done a fine job explaining your point, you and Philip. I got it.
I have some
Thank you,
questions.
Commissioner.
I have some questions,
I got
Mr.
it,
Chairman.
I'm ahead of you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Scamella.
Actually, it's for Mr. Sissing.
Wait a minute, hold on. I promised Mr. Francis I'd
That's
try
all
to be
right.
fair.
You pointed at me, that's
I
why I
would like
stepped in.
to ask you, Point Coupé attorney.
No, I'll get you.
My customers support local generation, okay? And we're talking about possibly not having that. Would you counter Energy's position on that?
Yes, Commissioner. I mean, Entergy's argument is not new. The MCO was the solution and the path forward that staff and the commission has supported. Because we have been the last group of co-ops to go through this, we have paid attention to the MCO as this was an issue through MISO, through FERC, and then at the commission. This is an issue that has been thoroughly briefed with our board. We have had numerous in-depth discussions with NextEra about it. What we like about it is that we have the flexibility to comply with the order. We have the flexibility to do the energy efficiency, the demand response, build new generation, and we're doing it with a very known, recognized counterparty in NextEra. As Mr. Hanna admitted, I mean, they have very large presence. You know my background. It is not unusual that a power marketing group that works with a different utility does not itself own the generation. It has contracts with people who do it. That's actually the same setup we had with NRG for till 2019, until we sold it to Cooperative. That contract was with, Louisiana Generating. It had certain units. It also had contracts with NRG, PMI, and other units. So that's not an unusual situation. Don't get fooled by that argument. We're going to comply. The power's going to be there. The staff did a good job on their MCO report. We have submitted comments on it. We have not objected to the amount. We have not asked for a grandfathered amount. The power is going to be there. NextEra is going to provide the power. From a cost perspective, we're talking about the capacity. That's one portion. You have energy and you have capacity. This doesn't affect the energy side of our power price at all. This is a portion of our capacity that we have planned for and actually have the flexibility to be able to respond to meet. And as Mr. Murphy has agreed, NextEra has already agreed that they're going to provide the power, meet the requirements of the MCO, because we briefed them with this. We went through toe-to-toe to make sure that they knew what they were signing up for too, and what our expectations were. So I have no concern that the lights are going to go off because the NextEra is not going to show up with the power, and it's a year and a half because it's April 2025 and we start 24 next year. So, Commissioner, I think the lights are going to be on. I mean, I live right there in the small rural communities too. This is a good opportunity and a good opportunity for us to be able to comply with a good partner on the other side.
So if their prices go up, though, we got the electricity, but we're talking about the price too. These board of directors of these co-ops are going to, y'all the ones are going to get roasted, not the Public Service Commission. You understand that?
Commissioner, just remember again, it's a portion of the price. Under our current contract, there's only a certain portion of it that's fixed for capacity pricing now. So there's only a portion of it that would be going up. We fully expect the market to move in response to the MCO rule or to the MISO rules that are coming down. That's part of it. What we have is the flexibility to respond if we see that gas is down and we're able to lock in with a favorable generator on the other side. We can do it for a longer period of time. We can wait, but we're going to be complying with the MCO rules on the capacity. I don't want it to sound like our rates are going to go through the roof because of the MCO. This is a small portion. And if you think about like capacity for Point Capilla Electric, once we get the resolution with a solar contract that also does provide us some capacity, which I think even Entergy acknowledged, that we're talking very small amounts of capacity that we're dealing with.
Wait a second.
Oh, no.
Mr. Scametta.
Yeah, just a few different questions. For Mr. Murphy, and then Lane. Mr. Murphy, the power resources you're getting through your third-party contracting in other states, are you a de facto owner of those facilities, or are they true third-party independent owners?
Both.
You're both? So you actually are contracting with yourself on some of these?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, so you're going to be taking power from these resources and delivering them to Louisiana. what were these things delivering power to before you were going to deliver it to Louisiana?
So currently, we're in the process of...
You might have to speak up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'll get closer to the mic. Currently, we're in the process of determining who those parties would be, generators or other marketers. So as I sit here today, we haven't solidified who those contractors would be. So it's hard for me to answer that question. But I would say many of these generators are looking for short-term deals, 2 years, 3 years. So they may have been selling into Arkansas. They may have been selling into Louisiana. They may have been selling into MISO North.
So you're telling the commission today that your plan is to contract with people to get power, but you actually don't have any contracts for power at this time?
We said the same thing in the DEMCO and JDUC proceeding until the contract is
I'm just
approved.
looking for a yes or no.
I understand that, and we're both good attorneys. And
I'm not.
But
I
as
ain't
a
worth
good
a damn,
attorney,
Hoss. You get paid $1,000 an hour, not me.
So I'm not going to answer yes or no. As we said in the JDUC and DEMCO proceeding, when the contract gets approved, that gives us the ability to go out and actually start the negotiations or execute contracts with power suppliers.
Well, let me ask you the big question. What the hell is wrong with Louisiana why you won't build resources in Louisiana?
I would differ with that statement. In conclusion, our testimony is very clear that we see Louisiana as a state where we want to build a lot of generation.
Well, I mean, then my point is other co-ops are building generation here. Magnolia built a power plant. They're building solar arrays. They're doing that. And, the next Terra long game seems to be to reach out to the east and bring a lot of resources in from existing resources that are currently serving other resources. So my question is, are they going to be overextended to where they're serving certain things, they're serving other things when they come in to serve us? And my next question is going to be to Lane about this, because at some point, there's only so many different ways you can shoot an electron when you start running short. So my particular thing is, if you're going to get a contract with a co-op that's going to have a certain load and a certain desire, I don't understand why you're not putting people to work in Louisiana, building facilities in Louisiana, accomplishing a lot what Mr. Hand had just said about building resource adequacy in Louisiana, so we don't put ourselves into a situation of, blackouts. I don't want to call it load shedding because that's a joke, but I want to talk about blacking out power resources because we're going to rely on potentially multi-directional consumed electricity in other states that might at the same time have a hyper demand on it. So I just want to know why, if you're going to have a contract, and how long is your contract going to be, Russell? How long is the contract for?
Jennifer Bosberg.
Well, Jennifer knows too?
It's for 10 years.
Okay, well, if you're going to have a 10-year contract, these solar arrays and stuff like that are only good for 20 years. So, and I've probably got a renewal potential in your contract. So I don't understand why you don't want to build in Louisiana. I mean, at that point, I'm just being curious. But that tells me that if you're using identified resources in another state, that they're already built, right? Are they built, or are you going to build them?
I would say they're already built, and I would also say the resources are in Louisiana and potentially in other states.
Okay, so the resources in other states are already built, right?
They would have to be if we're going to use them in the next 2 years.
So if they're in other states, people are already taking power from them, correct?
As I stated previously, we're in an area which is, I don't have that data because we haven't reached out and started to
I would
execute,
say that they would be a really bad operator if they created a power facility and didn't sell power. So again, my question becomes, the multiple directional disbursement of electrons does not ensure deliverability and reliability to Louisiana while you could be building it here. So I'm going to leave it at that. Lane, What we heard from Larry about the 2024-2025 differential of about 2,300 megawatts and a 400 megawatt, I think that was the statement of being short into that cycle for the winter peak. And a lot of people don't realize, the public doesn't realize that winter demand is actually more aggressive on the grid than summer demand because of amperage draw of heaters versus air conditioners. Have you looked at an anticipated impact of potential like shortage because of sort of a market-based thing, not having the actual, I guess, the resource security to deliver power during that period?
Well, I think the simplest way to answer that is that's what the proposed rule that we have is all about. Yes, we've looked at the impact. It's what concerns us to the point.
Proposed minimum capacity order?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know which rule you meant. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, this proposed rule gets at exactly that issue, and you point out winter. It's not just staff's survey that shows the potential deficit in winter in the near term. MISO did an OMS survey. It supports that same theory. Winter, MISO just switched from an annual construct to a seasonal construct,
right,
which allows you to pinpoint that winter risk.
And didn't we see that impact in the 1803 issue associated with solar? With the summer, where we had to move to the Calpine winter potential contracting?
Well, what I can say about solar is that, especially at MISO, there is a growing concern over how it's going to be accredited.
Right.
This is all about the accreditation of a particular generator versus a potential future load.
Right.
And for winter, solar gets extremely low. It could be accredited as low as 0, meaning that solar would provide next to nothing towards the capacity requirement for the winter season.
Right. So, but what Larry was talking about was the issue associated with shortage of resource adequacy by the end of 24 and 25. Now, how would you, if that's correct, how will that impact availability of power? How will that impact pricing in the state? Do you have some sort of, because, I mean, look, you're the guru. How do you anticipate that really impacting availability of power and pricing to the ratepayers, not just in one area, but throughout the state?
Sure. So, I mean, the goal, I'm trying to reconcile with the goal of the order is to not let that happen. If it happened, the impact is an outage. It is that if you don't have enough capacity to meet the winter peak, then you would have, MISO would issue notices to turn off the power. That would impact every ratepayer across this in the MISO region if it happened in MISO, and in the SPP region if it happens in SPP. The way that they issue these orders for the utilities to cut the power is based on load ratio share, not based on the entities who do provide capacity and who don't provide capacity. So you're asking what would happen if we don't adequately plan for resource adequacy. It puts all of the state's ratepayers and utility customers at a higher risk of actually receiving outages.
So the solution to minimizing that risk is actually to increase the construction of generation resources within the state.
That is absolutely one way you could do it. I mean, there is an accreditation process that exists where a generator gets an amount of accredited capacity and you accumulate enough accredited capacity to meet your load. That accredited capacity doesn't necessarily have to come from the state, but there are transmission constraints, right, and there are different constraints that would incentivize local generation, especially in the load pockets and the industrial load pockets we have in Louisiana. The more generation that we can get in those load pockets, the more secure the capacity is.
In your analysis, did you take into consideration the issue of NextEra's resources in other states being currently used by or distributing electrons in other directions and being like impacted by having multiple contracts for distributing power, and how that may cause an impact on the distribution of power into the co-ops?
No, we approached it from the other angle by requiring that the accredited capacity be delivered. So the MCO, no, to answer your question, no.
So is there any prohibition from the designated resource in another state from selling to non-contracted parties to potentially place a risk on deliverability?
I don't believe there is a prohibition in that, no.
Well, that would concern me because of the potential is the risk of deliverability of power from effectively far away on multiple contract parties. So I think that, I don't know if that can be corrected in the MCO, but if there's going to be a designation of power supply to the state, particularly from faraway resources, because I know when you looked at the MCO order that you looked at availability from other places. But I think that when I look at it, I look at the traditional sort of range of where power has come from in the past, which is not super far away, but through Mississippi, Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, through that circle of where we've gotten power. And I think that's a reasonable sort of area of accumulating electrons, right? So I don't want to say, well, we should look at getting it from, South Carolina or whatever, so there's a bridge too far at some point, right? So, but at some point, I do think we have to look at when Mr. Murphy's discussion of self-dealing of contracting. So he says some of these resources are their own. So are they bumping price if they contract with themselves, right? If they are contracting with third-party contractors to do other issues. But again, if they're designated power resources for the co-op, that's fine. But if they are potential power supply facilities that can go in multiple directions, I don't see how that secures the power resource for the co-op. And I just think that needs to be a concern for your analysis.
Sure, and to be...
For the MCO order.
Hold on one second.
Commissioner, your mic, please.
What?
Your mic.
I just said, hold up for a second. You about through?
I was just about through when you stopped.
Yeah, well, I've been, you've been at it about 20
There's no
minutes.
time limit on a commissioner's questions.
Well, I know, but you've been talking about 20 minutes, so let's wrap this up.
It's not
Could
been
you do
20
it?
minutes, Commissioner.
I'm gonna give you 5 more.
You can,
I'm gonna
you
give
can
3 more
look at
minutes
that
and I'm gonna
watch
cut
all
off.
you can.
3 minutes, let's
Yeah.
go.
Well, how about this? This is a poorly thought out power resource mechanism that the co-ops, God bless them, they want to get something that costs less, and I don't blame them. But I do not trust someone who says, we're going to get a contract, we're going to make a deal, we're going to find resources, and it ain't going to be in Louisiana. And if you're going to go for that, you go ahead and go for it. But until we get an MCO order that defines what we need, what the power is going to be, and they're going to assure it, and they're going to have a deal, that's fine. Otherwise, you know what a pig and a poke is, and that's what this is. Now, I'd rather just abstain or not do it, but I'll vote against it until we get the MCO order out. Once we get the MCO order out, and Lane Sissing and the staff say they can meet it, well, then I'll vote for it. But until then, I'm not. So now I'm done.
Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hand, some questions for you. You laid out a case, but is it not true, didn't you compete in the RFP process to offer load to the co-ops?
We did.
Did you offer any new generation in that RFP?
Effectively, yes. We offered them a slice of system of our generation because we have about 10,000 megawatts of load. We have about 11,000 megawatts of generation. By definition, we would need to factor in the future planning for new generation, new capacity resources, any additional wholesale load we would be serving the customer. So when you do as a slice of system, we serve our customers, we plan for physical generation to meet our peak plus reserves. And it would include, if we were selected, it would include the co-op load as a wholesale customer.
Well, I get that, but it kind of flies in the face of your comments about the tightening and decreasing future capacity. So if you are worried about future capacity, why did you then bid?
Because we would add supply, we would add new generation if we were selected to make sure there was an adequate amount of physical generation to meet our load and theirs.
So do you believe these contracts diminish resource adequacy?
To be clear, only the next era energy marketing power supply agreement, not talking about the PPAs. But I do believe because there's no physical obligation to provide a physical resource, it diminishes resource adequacy for all of Louisiana.
So you don't believe this is freeing up existing generation?
I lost the first part, I'm sorry.
I said you do not believe this is freeing up freeing up existing generation under these contracts?
I don't understand the question.
I mean, you're talking about, and you keep making an argumentation that capacity is tight. But I am, to my appreciation, I do not believe these contracts are diminishing resource adequacy. Instead, in fact, I think they are freeing up existing generation. So I'm asking you, do you disagree with my analysis?
If your question is inferring that it frees up the Clico-Cajun generation, because that contract is expiring and they're not contracting for that, sure, that generation exists today, but that generation as it exists today for Clico-Cajun, you may call it freed up. It's not contracted to the co-ops, but it's in the supply and demand mix. It's in that capacity market that MISO is looking at, that we're looking at, and that staff looked at. So the Clico-Cajun megawatts are in that mix. So the supply and demand is dwindling. I don't know what you meant by freed up, but it's there, it exists today, but it's still not enough.
Okay, you, in your testimony and even in your comments today, pointed to the coal retirements. Is that correct? Potential coal retirements?
Yes.
But has your integrated resource plan been accepted yet?
You're asking about Entergy's resource plan?
Yes.
We've had multiple integrated resources plans go to the commission, have been accepted. The current one has not yet been accepted by the commission.
Okay, thank you. Because I would say based off of the comments, I don't think that's a sufficient grounds to affect this deal. I mean, I've heard you mention it, but looking at that, I think that is also challenging. You further went on to talk about Florida, and I do have some questions about kind of the condensation that you made there. You did go into an agreement with Magnolia, is that correct?
Who did?
Entergy, with Magnolia Power. I'm just talking generically. I'm not talking about this particular deal. You have an agreement to provide transmission with Magnolia Power. That's in my district.
Magnolia, the CCGT, would be
Yes.
connected to the Entergy transmission grid. That is correct.
Yes. And so the reason I brought that up is because you brought up Florida, and I'm kind of troubled by some of your comments because is it not correct that they just had to file an audit based off of kind of you jerking around over pricing? Did they not file an audit of the pricing that you have been kind of not janking around is the word I want to use because they are trying to connect, right?
And I think what you're referring to is the interconnection estimates that are given when they're in the queue.
Yes.
They provide class 5, class 3.
Did they not
estimates.
request an audit?
I know they requested information about the actual cost, but whether it was a formal audit, I don't know.
You don't know, because I believe they have requested an audit that you've been unresponsive to. So the reason I brought that up is because I cannot accept these arguments that you're making about Florida when you're doing the complete opposite. And so I think if you're going to present comments, you should be full and holistic in the operations of your institution and your corporation, and not using another state as an example when you yourself are not even following the example you're trying to use. And so that's why I just wanted to clear up some of the comments that you made, because I felt like some of this is just not kind of necessary, and these reasonings have been rejected time and time again by our staff, and these are not considerations here from any PSC ruling or MISO framework, and so I just wanted to, there were some things that you said that I think just needed to be cleared up. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Francis? No further questions? I'd entertain a motion right now. This is on Concordia.
Yes, sir. We already have a motion by Commissioner Francis, a second by Commissioner Lewis, and opposition by Commissioner Skrmetta, so we would need a roll call vote.
I didn't understand a word you said.
We already have a motion and a second.
You know what? You could help me a little bit if you would talk a little bit slower.
I can do that.
Jesus.
We have a motion by Commissioner Francis, a second by Commissioner Lewis, opposition from Commissioner Skrmetta.
I got that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's have a vote. You have to vote. Would you please call the roll?
Yes,
You get
sir.
that?
I got that. So we'll start with Commissioner Skrmetta.
No, with reasons previously assigned.
And Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Commissioner Francis,
Yes.
Chair.
That's
Chairman
me.
Campbell, that's you?
Oh, you said Mr. Francis, okay. I'm for this. I
Okay.
misunderstood you. I
So the
apologize.
item passes 3-1.
All right, the next one, please.
So, and just for the record, I think everyone is comfortable saying that all of the discussion we just had also applies to 8 and 9. Commissioner Scrimmett, I recognize you still have some
Well-
particular questions.
Why do you say that?
Well, because you said you had questions.
Well, no, but why do you say all the discussion remains the same? Like, it's different.
Well, or
Actually,
similar, because I mean, Ms. Vosberg spoke on Concordia.
well, oh, I didn't know, but, I will tell you that probably I'll be able to resolve the issues with Nextera by getting him to just adopt his previous questions and answers, but I'll have to talk to the co-op, if that'll work for everybody.
I think that'll be fine. So we will move on to exhibit number 8, which is docket number U36515. It's Point Capee Electric Membership Corporation, Nextera Energy Marketing, and Mondu Solar's joint application for approval of long-term power supply agreements. Is a discussion and possible vote on an ALJ recommendation. In this proceeding, Point Capee seeks to replace its lodge-in PSSA with a full requirements wholesale power supply and service agreement with Nextera for a period of 9.75 years to begin on April 1st, 2025 in the Mondu Solar Project, which is a 150 megawatt solar generating resource owned by Nextera affiliate Mondu Solar, to be located in Point Capee Parish, and from which Point Capee will purchase 25 megawatt capacity and energy through a 25-year power purchase agreement. Clico Cajun and Entergy Louisiana timely intervened in the proceeding with ALEC and EP2 Consulting requesting interested party status. There was a joint hearing held in this matter on May 30th through June 1st of 2023 with nearly identical proceedings in docket numbers U36514 and U36516, filed by Concordia Electric Cooperative and Southwest Louisiana Electric Membership Corporation. Based on the evidence and testimony presented in the proceeding, the administrative law judge recommends that the commission adopt the final recommendation of the ALJ and draft order issued on October 6, 2023, containing the following ordering language. PC Electric has complied with and met the requirements under the commission's MBM order. The Nextera PSA serves the public convenience and necessity and should therefore be certified as prudent in accordance with the commission's 1983 general orders, subject to the following conditions. The joint applicants accept all risk of changes in commission's rules, specifically including a potential requirement for owned and/or contracted for generation being procured to meet future capacity needs without the benefit of grandfathering. Joint applicants acknowledge and agree that any future changes made to the Nextera PSA based on changing regulations is subject to the commission review and approval, including without limitation. At the conclusion of docket number R36263, the joint applicants will make a filing with the commission so that the commission may consider the impacts of its decision in that docket on its decision in this docket. On the PSA and whether or not any amendments are required, including but not limited to changes to the PSA, changes affecting the pricing mechanism for the sale of the capacity and/or energy and/or deliverability, or reporting requirements, so that the commission may take any action it deems appropriate. Joint applicants retain the obligation to prudently manage the Nextera PSA. Joint applicants agree to annually report to the commission information related to all decisions made to the price and/or procure capacity to meet the cooperative's future load needs, including the information outlined in the pre-filed direct testimony of staff witness Mr. Sissung, HPS confidential version on pages 55 through 58. All prudently incurred costs incurred with the Nextera PSA are deemed eligible for rate recovery by the cooperative, subject to commission review and further determination at a later date in a separately docketed rate proceeding, with the expiration of and removal from rates of the costs associated with the current power supplier, and that the Mondu Solar PPA is not approved at this time. However, the commission may determine that the Mondu Solar PPA serves the public convenience and necessity and should therefore be certified as prudent in accordance with the commission's 1983 general order upon review of a filing by the joint applicants within 60 days of the issuance of this order, which contains the following: a quantification of the effects of the price increases and/or decreases discussed in finding of fact number 22, an assessment of the potential savings associated with the Inflation Reduction Act, and a proposal for flowing any identified savings to the cooperative. And I think we have folks from the
I have some questions, Mr. Vice Chair. Just make this quick. Mr. Murphy, you went through a series of questions in our last round. Would you agree to adopt our questions and your answers as part of the record?
Yes.
Okay, staff is satisfied with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Myron, I'd like to ask you to be excused, so you can go ahead and about your personal business. I think we can take care of this with Ms. Vosberg, if that's okay. I know Myron has some personal business to attend to.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I just was informed. Myron, you can actually head on home. Is he riding with somebody? Myron, you can go ahead and go, buddy. Jennifer, you've heard the series of questions that we've asked before.
Yes, Commissioner.
And, the concerns that I have about this are that you're entering into this contract on behalf of your client with a full and open understanding of the MCO order not being complete, and that you're subjected to the change, whatever that may be, and if there are increased costs associated with it, and increased potential, that you understand that there could be impact to the members of the co-op as you face this.
Yes, Commissioner, that was an issue that we have briefed thoroughly with our board. We have talked about it with our consultants. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we have been watching and briefing our board on the MCO since its initial discussions at the MISO level. So this is something that we're aware of. We have worked with our consultants to understand any type of price impact potential, and we're ready to comply with it and understand the risk.
And you assume all the risks of potential change as we move forward into the analysis of the MCO order, correct?
We understand that there is the risk that there's a rate increase that potentially can come from the MCO, so yes, Commissioner.
And you assume the risk?
Yes, Your Commissioner.
Okay, I'm done, thank you. I will say, you've heard the previous discussion with Concordia, and you would adopt their question and answers as part of your own?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
We do have Mr. Hand again, who supplied a yellow card. I'm not sure if he just wants to adopt his same statements from Exhibit 8. Mr. Hand?
Larry, do you want to put anything in? Okay.
Do you just adopt everything you said in Exhibit 8? Mr. Hand says yes for the record.
Okay.
Does he want to speak?
No, sir.
Any further questions?
Just move to roll call vote with my opposition as previously stated.
We do need to entertain a motion at a second first.
A motion to approve.
We have a motion to do what?
We have a motion to accept the final recommendation of the ALJ.
I'll
We have a
second.
motion to approve.
Okay, that's good.
Second.
I don't have my hearing aid today, you can tell. That's why you got to talk slow. We have a motion to approve. Has anybody got an objection?
Yes.
Mr. Scametta, you second.
Yes.
I got it. Let's go. You want to call the roll?
So we will start with Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Francis,
Yes.
Commissioner Skrmetta,
No, with adopting my previous comments for reasons for opposed.
and Chairman Campbell.
Yes.
Yes.
Number 10.
Number 9. Exhibit number 9 is docket number U3651.
Yeah, number 9, excuse me.
516. This is Southwest Louisiana Electric Membership Corporation, NextEra Energy Marketing, and Beauregard Solar's joint application for approval of a long-term power supply agreement. It's a discussion and possible vote on an ALJ recommendation. In this proceeding, Slimco seeks to replace the Lodge-In PSSA with a full requirements wholesale power supply and service agreement with NextEra Energy Marketing for a period of 9.75 years to begin April 1st, 2025, and the Beauregard Solar Project, which is a 200-megawatt solar generating resource owned by NextEra's affiliate, Beauregard Solar, to be located in Beauregard Parish, and from which Slimco will purchase 100% of the capacity energy through a 25-year purchase power agreement. Clico Cajun and Energy Louisiana timely intervened in the proceeding with ALEC and EP2 Consulting requesting interested party status. A joint hearing was held in this matter on May 30th through June 1st of 2023 with nearly identical proceedings in docket numbers U36514 and U36515 filed by Concordia Electric and Point Capee Electric Membership Corporations. Based on the evidence and testimony presented in the proceeding, the administrative law judge recommends that the commission adopt the final recommendation of the ALJ and draft order issued October 6th of 2023 containing the following ordering language. Slimco has complied with and met the requirements under the Commission's MBM order. The NextEra PSA serves the public convenience and necessity and should therefore be certified as prudent in accordance with the Commission's 1983 General Order subject to the following conditions. Joint applicants accept all risk of changes in the Commission's rules, specifically including a potential requirement for owned and/or contracted for generation being procured to meet future capacity needs without the benefit of grandfathering. Joint applicants acknowledge and agree that any future changes made to the NextEra PSA based on changing regulations is subject to the Commission review and approval, including without limitation at the conclusion of docket number R36263. The joint applicants will make a filing with the Commission so that the Commission may consider the impacts of its decisions in that docket on its decisions in this docket. On the PSA and whether or not any amendment is required, including but not limited to changes to the PSA, changes affecting the pricing mechanism for the sale of capacity and/or energy and/or deliverability, or reporting requirements so that the Commission may take any action it deems appropriate. Joint applicants retain the obligation to prudently manage the NextEra PSA. Joint applicants agree to annually report to the Commission information related to all decisions made to price and/or procure capacity to meet the Cooperative's future load needs, including information outlined in the pre-filed direct testimony of staff witness Mr. Susung, HSPM, confidential version on page 55 through 58. All prudently incurred costs associated with the NextEra PSA are deemed eligible for rate recovery by the Cooperative, subject to Commission review and further determination at a later date in a separately docketed rate proceeding, with the expiration of and removal from rates of the costs associated with the current power supplier, and that the Beauregard Solar PPA is not approved at this time. However, the Commission may determine that the Beauregard Solar PPA serve a public convenience and necessity and should therefore be certified as prudent in accordance with the Commission's 83 General Order upon review of filing by the applicants within 60 days of the issuance of this order, which contains the following: a quantification of the effects of price increases and/or decreases discussed in finding of fact number 22, an assessment of the potential savings associated with the Inflation Reduction Act, and a proposal for the flowing of any identified savings to the Cooperative.
Some questions?
Accept the staff recommendation on Exhibit 9.
Wait a minute, Mr.
Well,
Scametta.
you can put the motion
Make
on.
a motion,
That was a motion, yes.
and I'll second it.
Yeah.
I just did
Now,
that.
Mr. Scametta.
Yeah, Mr. Murphy would like to adopt your previous testimony and questions associated with this particular co-op as your own.
Yes, thank you.
Staff satisfied?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Glenn, I'd like to adopt your previous testimony as directed at this particular co-op as your testimony previously and applying it to this co-op as your own. Staff satisfied?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And ma'am, would you state your name for the record?
Yes, Catherine Domingue, interim CEO
And
of
Catherine,
Slumco.
my question to you is, you've heard of the previous discussions that we've had for a prior co-op. And do you understand the discussion that we've been having associated with the minimum capacity order as the future potential impact it may have on your co-op?
Yes, Commissioner, we do.
Okay. And do you unconditionally accept all the risk of potential change that may occur in the MCO and how it may impact your particular co-op contract?
Yes, as discussed earlier, we are willing and able to apply and comply with any LPSC order on the MCO docket.
So do you accept the risk for your
Yes,
co-op?
we
Good.
do.
I have no further questions.
We do have one
Wait a
yellow
minute.
card again from Mr. Han. If he just accepts his testimony from Exhibit 7, for the record, he does.
I got a question for NextEra. Well, first to say thank you for coming into our state and offering some competition. That's good for business. That's what we're supposed to do as a Public Service Commission. Did you take over operations at Toledo Bend, at the generators on Toledo Bend?
Did we take over operations of?
Yes, there's about a 60 megawatt generator at Toledo Bend.
Oh, yes, we did.
So you've come into the state and you're our operator. So you're actually selling electricity into Louisiana from a Louisiana asset, right?
Yes, we are contracting to do that, yes.
Okay, just wanted that for the record, so let the people know.
Thank you.
Any further questions? There's not any further questions. Has anybody got a motion?
Opposition roll call vote request.
There was a
Roll call.
Yeah,
motion by Vice Chair,
go.
second by roll call. Commissioner Scarmatta?
No, based on my previous comments.
Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Commissioner Francis?
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1. Moving to Exhibit number 10, docket number U36970. This is Magnolia Water Utility Operating Company's 2022 Formula Rate Plan Annual Report, request for adjustment of water and sewage rates, including modification of commercial wastewater rate design, adjustment of the system acquisition regulatory asset, and implementation of service charges. It's a discussion and possible vote on a joint report and draft order. On May 1st, 2023, Magnolia filed its annual report for test year ending December 31st, 2022, in compliance with Commission Order Number U35822. Notice was published in the Commission's official bulletin, and there were no interventions. Pursuant to Commission Order Number U35822, Magnolia's FRP utilizes an earnings bandwidth based on a calculated return on equity band of 9 to 10% with a midpoint of 9.5. If earnings fall within the calculated ROE bandwidth, then no rate change would be necessary, with rate changes if the ROE was outside of the band. In its 2022 FRP filing, Magnolia reported a consolidated ROE of 5.3%. This deficiency in earnings would require an increase in Magnolia's revenue requirement of $2,497,548, with $619,000 allocated to water and approximately $1.8 million allocated to sewer. Due to the acquisition of several Tier 3 water systems, Magnolia also requested authority to implement new flow-through charges for customers under its Tier 3 rate structure that receive water purchased from outside utilities. All flow-through charges are dollar for dollar and are shown on customers' bills as a separate item. Additionally, Magnolia requested to include a grinder pump service or repair charge as well as a grinder pump replacement charge in its current tariff for customers located in the Rigolette's estates. Finally, Magnolia requested that the Commission approve its adjustment of the system acquisition regulatory asset created for purpose of recording operating losses accrued to acquired systems upon acquisition of 4,000 or more customers. This approved amount will be amortized for rate-making purposes over 10 years. On September 5th of 2023, staff filed its amended staff report and recommendation confirming that the filing complied with Order Number U35822. On September 25th, Magnolia filed its response, which indicated concurrence with staff's report, and October 5th, staff and Magnolia filed the joint report and draft order. As there are no unresolved issues, staff and Magnolia respectfully request that the Commission accept the joint report and issue the draft order, both filed into the record on October 5th, 2023.
Move to accept staff recommendation.
Second.
If no objections, recommendations pass.
Exhibit number 11 is reports, resolutions, discussions. The first item under this exhibit is a report regarding recent SWEPCO weather-related outages. So I guess if folks, representatives from SWEPCO
Yeah, and
would walk up.
I'll start. I've got some information. Commissioner Campbell had asked me.
Wait, let's get the SWEPCO people up here.
Sure.
SWEPCO?
There.
Oh, there they are.
And Commissioner, I've got some information on the numbers if you want me to, and then I know they've got a response to it, but I figured I'd give this first. So
that's good.
We looked into it over the summer. You've had concern with the frequency of outages. So SWEPCO reports to us when they have in excess of 10,000 out for a particular event. So I got with my staff, Jessica, who deals with GOSEP and that, and there were 6 different events during the summer where we had north of 10,000 outages. That was on June 11th, 12,000, June 16th, 147,000, July 16th, 40,000, August 28th, 20,000, September 8th, 20,000, and September 25th, 22,000. These are all rough estimates.
How many outages is that?
Total over the time, spitballing it, Colby usually does that quick math, but I'm thinking about 250,000.
No, I'm talking about how many occurrences?
6.
6 occurrences.
6 occurrences between.
And what's the time period?
From June 11th was the first one, and the last one was September 25th.
June 11th this year?
Yes. So these.
22?
Yes.
Till, when was the last one?
September 25th. So there were six occasions in that 4-month period where we saw north of 10,000 outages from a weather
And
event.
how many people were out altogether?
About 250,000, if my math is right. The bulk of that was on the outage on June 16th. That was right at 150,000.
Hey, listen, these people are all our friends and all, but we're the Public Service Commission. I can't stand being out of electricity 6 times from July to September. I can't stand that. People can't stand it. They're calling me, and just when you got one done or you get everything settled, you have another one out. 6 outages in 3 months. How do you explain that? I know you're going to tell me about the wind, and we've got the numbers on the wind there. Now, don't y'all expose yourself on this wind too much, because the proof's in the pudding. He's got the numbers. And every time you have a wind 60 miles an hour doesn't mean everybody's got to go out of electricity. Tell them about the wind there.
Okay, so what I did is, and look, I know people have weather stations and you've got smaller stuff, but the historical data and the go-to is the National Weather Service. Each weather service has several forecast offices. So I got the Shreveport Airport, which is where the National Weather Service office is, in your area. There's also one in Monroe, Alexandria, Baton Rouge, Lake Charles, Slidell, and New Orleans. So I got the Shreveport numbers, but I also wanted to look and see if we could see some consistency. So I pulled the numbers from Alexandria, Baton Rouge, Lake Charles, and Monroe as well.
So you're comparing apples to apples?
Correct. So, and I know we could say there might have been higher somewhere else or lower, but we're going to see the same thing in these other ones. I mean, the Lake Charles Airport might have had higher than outside or vice versa.
I got it. Let's have it.
So in Alexandria, and this is over that same 4-month period, the peak gust we saw in Alexandria was 64 miles an hour.
How much?
64. That was on June 10th. The peak gust we saw in Baton Rouge was on June 17th. That was 66 miles an hour. The peak gust we saw in Lake Charles was 70 miles an hour on August 27th. The peak gust in Monroe was 59 on June 10th, and the peak gust in Shreveport was 70 on June 16th. Looking at those particular dates where I gave you those numbers, on the 12th, on June 11th, the peak gust reported at the airport was 38 miles an hour. The day that they had 147,000, the peak gust was 70. On July 16th, it was 40,000 out. That was a 54-mile-an-hour gust. On August 28th.
How much, 54?
54.
And how many people to have out?
40,000. On August 28th, there were 20,000 out. The peak gust was 50. On September 8th, 20,000 out. The peak gust was 47. And on September 25th, 22,000 out. The peak gust was 66.
So we got to do something. All I can hear, don't take this personal, but that's what y'all tell me. We got wind. Everybody's got wind, but you're having people out when it's 47 miles an hour. Everybody has 47 hour. You've had 6 outages. People are driving me wild, and they should be. There's no reason. And you used to talk about how bad Valley was, but Valley hadn't been having the outages. We've having it in downtown Shreveport and all the areas. So whatever y'all got to do, you better do something because this is not working. I don't know exactly. You have something?
I got a
Mr.
question.
Francis?
Yeah. I want to ask just briefly, we allow so much vegetation dollars per miles of line, right?
Yes, sir.
Do we give you any allowance for, your area has more trees on it than any other place in Louisiana, and compared to my land, I've got the rice and the sugar cane, and you got the pine trees, Do you get any extra allocation for having more dense forestation per line, or is it about the same? And what I'm getting at is, do you need more money to keep the trees trimmed, It's a simple question,
Tom,
Make sure your mic's on.
press the button.
No,
There's a
push the
button in
button.
the middle.
There you go.
Green light should come on. In the middle on the top. There you go.
Thank you. Tom Bryce, Southwestern Electric Power Company. Commissioner Francis, thank you for your question. So we do have a certain amount of money that we spend on vegetation each and every year, but we have actually surpassed that the last 2 years. In our rates, we've had about $18 million for vegetation management, but the last 2 years, we spent 25 and 28 million. As part of our proactive efforts to address reliability, to ensure that customers get the service that we expect and they demand, we've also been proactive, and we've removed about 50,000 danger trees throughout the state, and we've ramped up our pole inspections. So we've done a lot of great work. But to answer your question directly, and sorry I didn't answer it right off the bat, yes, we could use more money for vegetation management.
Let me say this before we get started there. You ain't asked me for one dime, so let's just fess up while everybody's going to preach a little bit today. If you need money, I'm the guy that you need to see.
Yeah.
You ain't asked for the money, so it's real hard to read y'all's mind. And I have give you everything you've ever wanted for 20 years. I'm almost wearing a swept coat t-shirt. And I'm sick of people calling me. Don't sit up here and tell them you need more money. You got to tell me, Foster, we got to have more money. And I have helped, and I've helped, and I've helped, but the proof's not in the pudding. You got people going out electricity at 50 miles an hour. All I can hear out of y'all is the wind's too high, the wind's too high. But everybody's not doing that. But the truth is now, when they took on trees, it's when they took on Valley Rural Electric, but they're not having troubles in Valley Rural Electric like they are downtown Shreveport. That's the fact. So anyway, I hear you. Tell me, how much would it take to fill y'all up? How many millions would it take to fill you up where you could get all the trees trimmed and this, that, and the other? I hear you, but you got to talk to me about it. All I hear is people talk to me about the damn electricity going off. That's what I'm hearing. I ain't hearing it from you, hey, we got to cut all these trees. Y'all are doing tree trimming. But you know, you got to make yourself known. Give me a plan. We can stop it, but there's no plan for electricity going out at 47 miles an hour when it doesn't go out in Energy and it doesn't go out in Clico.
I got a question, Commissioner. Foster?
Yeah,
I got a question.
I'm sorry, I didn't
That's
say
all right.
hearing.
I know you don't have your hearing aid in. So, question to y'all guys. When you looked at your outages, were they more in the rural area or were they in the city?
Well,
I mean, as far as the triggers of where the trees were coming down.
Commissioner Scametta, the outages that we've had this year from weather events has been primarily more in the cities, not the rural area of our service territory, Valley. Many of the storms that have come through have really hit Shreveport Bossier, and I can speak to my own personal experience. I've lived in my home for 13 years, and the first 12, I had one tree that has fallen due to severe weather. This summer, I've had 5 over 4 or 5 different events. So it's been an extreme year from a weather standpoint in 2023. I can tell you that the number of events where we had more than 20,000 customers out due to weather in 2023 was 7. The average the past 5 years was 1.6.
Let me ask you a question. Because I know when you go out on the rural roads, you got like, what is it, an 18-foot cutback or something, so you don't really lose a lot of the rural lines unless it's an unusual experience. Do you find you get impact from like mayors or council people about aggressively trimming inside the cities? Does that seem to be one of the major problems?
Yes, sir. In many of the cities and the populated areas, particularly the older parts of town where the trees they're very old, they've been there a long time. Customers love the trees. They don't like to see those trims. So during these events, those can cause significant problems.
Do you think those old growth trees that are sort of the protected trees are the ones that are sort of the triggers of these outages?
Particularly in 23, that's been what we've seen, yes, sir.
Well, you might want to work with Commissioner Campbell and the council to see about dealing with those old trees that are in the cities, because it's the same problem here in Metairie and in New Orleans, where you get the beautiful trees, and you know there's a lot of complaints about outages, but at the same time, no one wants to adequately trim the trees properly, and so it's a balancing act of restoration and protecting the trees. But I think that there can be a medium found of properly trimming and caring for trees and protecting the system. It actually benefits trees to properly trim them, and you know prevents for their longer life to do it properly. So, I find the same problem down here is that we don't have the big outages out in the countryside in my district. What we do have them is in the cities where we have the older, particularly the oak tree growths, and it doesn't have to even have a wind. You could be driving down the road and a dead branch will fall from whether it's termites or some other rot, and it'll hit it and trigger an outage. As long as it connects that top wire to the bottom wire, something's going to pop out. So, I suggest that you work with Commissioner Campbell and get with the local government and see what y'all can do about getting a little bit more aggressive on the interior tree trimming, because that'll help solve a lot of the problems. So,
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Francis.
Did you say you had 6 storms, basically with storm damage this year?
Commissioner Francis, 2 stats I'd like to give you. So with what our data tells us is that for weather events where we had more than 8,000 customers out, in 2023, we had 16 of those events. The average for the past 5 years was 6. Wow. So 2.5 times. And as I said earlier, for those events where we lost more than 20,000 customers, the number for 2023 year to date is 7, yet the average for the prior 5 years was 1.6.
Do you know what it cost for the storm damage? What your cost was?
It certainly is related to wind. The other statistic that we saw for this year, which is startling, the number of minutes of outages caused by lightning increased by 525% compared to the past 3-year average. The amount of lightning strikes that we experienced in our service territory this particular summer and spring was extraordinary. It's unlike anything we've seen.
Normally southeast Louisiana has all the lightning. Do y'all compare them? Did y'all have more lightning in southeast Louisiana? Do you know?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, could you re-ask?
Southeast Louisiana, they have the most lightning strikes. Did y'all have more than them this year?
Yes, sir. Okay. In particular, northwest Louisiana was.
And so all your storm damage, it comes right out of your bandwidth money, right? That's not, you don't get paid any extra for that.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this conversation, and I want to just concur with my colleague, Commissioner Campbell. I have family up in North Louisiana, and they are, especially in Shreveport, they're frustrated. They're extremely upset. And when I look at your safety scores, they're horrible. I mean, they were so bad you got penalized. And so I really need to see a plan from you all how you plan to improve that. Because while we are talking weather, I mean, we're looking at multitude of data that is not just weather related, that showcase there is a systematic problem that is not being addressed. And I mean, if you are getting a fine for your safety scores, that tells me there is something really wrong that you need to work on. And so I am really interested, and I want to see a plan how you plan to improve those scores and what that looks like. Because I think that's a definite challenge for you.
Commissioner Lewis, thank you for your comments. And the company and our entire team, our focus and dedication is on providing reliable and safe service to our customers. So that is our priority. And it certainly is upsetting to us when our customers experience service interruptions due to weather or other unforeseen events. No one within the company wants that to occur, but there will be times where we have these unforeseen events. So in terms of the plan to address SAIDI and SAFE, we talked a little bit about some of that earlier. There are 4 areas that we focus on. Number 1 is to remove danger trees wherever we possibly can. We removed over 50,000 danger trees in recent years. Number 2, we try to increase our vegetation management spend whenever we can. We currently, in our service quality improvement plan, we're required to spend about $18 million. The last 2 years, we spent $26 million and $28 million respectively to help address the issues with vegetation. The third point I'd like to make is pole replacement program. We've aggressively done the inspections and pursued that pole replacement plan. And then finally, our grid modernization program. That's been critically important to us. And one of the things that the Commission recently approved to help address the grid modernization program is the automated metering system that you approved, I believe, last month. The implementation and deployment of those meters will go a long way in helping the service reliability and those performance metrics that you cited earlier. So those are some things that we're currently doing, and we'll continue to do those extra activities and increase those as we move forward.
Thank you, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how you, especially with the meters, handle that customer satisfaction and that customer engagement. I'm going to be very interested in that proceeding upcoming.
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
And in fact, I'll say some of the meters, they're starting today. They're being installed as we sit here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Chairman.
still love both of y'all, but I got a bunch of people up there that don't love you. And I-
Commissioner, your mic,
But
please.
anyway, I said, I got a bunch of people up there that doesn't love him. I love him, but they don't love him. Anyway, I reminded me of a famous song, but I won't tell you about it. It's too good to tell in here. All right. You want me to tell you about it? Devontae, you ever heard of John Lee Hooker? He's before your time, but he's a famous black blues singer. So remind me of what I said. He said, where the mule jumped the fence, he didn't say that, but what he said was, he was a young man and he liked all the women. Then he fell around and he fell in love. And then his girlfriend said, now, Johnny, you in love with me, but I ain't in love with you. That's the tough spot. Now, I'm in love with y'all, but those people ain't in love with y'all up there. They want y'all to do something. So I hear you. I know you're going to try. Let's do something. If you need some money, tell me what you got to have. Give me a plan. I'll come down here, and I think we'll help you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You got anything to say, Mr.
Commissioner, I'll
Gillum?
just add one thing a little bit lighter. These linemen, when they go out and get on these jobs, people don't realize how hard they work. They really don't. And also it's dangerous. You got a tree falling in line and all that, and you're trying to deal with it. And one of them sent me a text, and it's got a photograph on it of a pole and a transformer and all this stuff. He said, the best linemen are not in the NFL.
And not what?
Are not in the NFL. I thought that was pretty good.
I know, they're good. And by the way, I got somebody I want y'all to hire. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Forget about it. All right.
And we still have,
We got you bring up.
we still have some directives and an executive session.
We got
Yes.
some.
So we have two directives under exhibit number 11. The first is a directive to staff regarding docket number U36959, Entergy Louisiana's pending rate case at the request of Commissioner Lewis. Regarding Entergy Louisiana's rate case currently pending before the commission, I have the following directives for staff. One, I understand that Entergy Louisiana has a number of automatic pass-through riders under which it collects about half its revenues. In its review of Entergy Louisiana's rate case, staff should determine whether these automatic riders provide benefits to consumers, whether these mechanisms reduce Entergy's risks so as to reduce the rate of return requirement, particularly in light of the securitization of storm damage cost and reserves, whether these mechanisms are otherwise necessary, and make recommendations to the commission. Number two, the staff should examine whether Entergy Louisiana has excluded liability accumulated deferred income tax items from rate base and determine whether the exclusion is reasonable based upon regulatory orders or settlements, and make recommendations to the commission. And number three, in recommending a fair rate of return on equity, staff should consider the extent to which Entergy Louisiana, its parents and affiliates have complied with this commission's orders and FERC regulatory orders as applicable to Louisiana rates, and make a recommendation accordingly.
I'd ask.
Your mic, please.
Mr.
Mike's on.
Chairman.
I'd ask that Commissioner Lewis defer this to November, as Entergy and staff are actually entering into discussions, I think tomorrow, about this particular issue, and request just a deferral for 1 month.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I have had those conversations. The only reason I will not entertain that is because this is mostly directed at their proceeding rate case and not under the negotiations and conversations that they would have pending other matters. And so we made sure, and I worked with staff and Entergy on switching some of the original language that was more geared towards the item that you were mentioning. And so we made it broader, took that direct language out. But I have gotten numerous calls after Entergy press release about their rate case of consumers wanting to know about their riders, wanting to know about this information. And so this is the pledge that I made to my constituents, that as now we are entering those proceedings, I would make sure that some of these questions that they've asked me and that I have interest in would be submitted into the record. But I do appreciate the point, and I'm interested to see what staff comes from those other conversations, but I think they've kind of been divorced from each other at this point in this language that I've now presented.
Okay, well, I'm going to oppose the directive, and but if depending, I'd be glad to hear it again next month.
What, he opposes, he doesn't drop it. Let's have a vote.
So Commissioner Scarmetta?
No.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Staff is, and Entergy have agreed to this directive, is that right?
Staff has helped Commissioner Lewis craft it. I don't want to speak for Entergy on whether or not they agree with it.
And Entergy, you say in Entergy it's okay with your directive?
That's not what I said.
Okay.
I don't know if they're okay with it. I mean,
Okay.
you can bring them up to the table and ask them.
Okay.
Let me tell you they're not okay with it. So let's vote. How about it? You
So
got a directive?
Commissioner Scarmetta votes no. Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Commissioner Francis?
No.
Commissioner Campbell?
Yes.
So the directive fails as a 2-2 vote.
I'm glad to hear it next month, Commissioner Lewis. See where we go.
Is that all of the directives? You got another one, don't you?
Yes, sir. There's another
Come on.
directive to electric utilities on federal funding opportunities at the request of Commissioner Lewis. Previously, I have encouraged our jurisdictional electric utilities to review the opportunities for federal grant funding opportunities that are available through the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Currently, we are aware that 3 of our electric cooperatives, NIMCO, JDEC, and SLECA, have a pending application seeking funding from the Grid Resilience and Innovation Program, or GRIP, and that Entergy Louisiana has a pending application to receive competitive funds through the Hubs for Energy Resilience portion of GRIP funding. While these grants are in the review process and decisions on both may come at any time, there are additional funding opportunities that have been made available, including but not limited to Homes Heat Rebate Programs, EPA Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, Louisiana Clean Energy Fund, EPA Low Emissions Electricity Program, DOA Powering Affordable Clean Energy Program, DOA Empowering Rural American Program, DOE Renewable Energy Production Tax Credit and Investment Tax Credit, including domestic content, energy communities, and low-income communities provisions, DOE Transmission Siting and Economic Development, DOE Transmission Facility Financing Program, DOE Energy Infrastructure Reinvestment Financing Program, DOE Commercial Distributed Energy Resources, and GRIP Round 2. I am also aware that our staff is directly involved in the interagency working groups that are assessing federal funding opportunities and their applicability in Louisiana. Given the potential beneficial impacts these grants or fundings could have on the ratepayers of our utilities, it is incumbent that utilities maximize potential funding opportunities and that we are updated on the utilities' efforts to apply for and possibly secure this funding. Accordingly, I direct the electric utilities to provide an update at our November B&E as to the status of grant and/or funding opportunities for which they have applied or will apply. While best efforts should be made to give a comprehensive public overview of current activities, additionally, utilities may elect to convey the nature of ongoing conversations with relevant federal offices and/or the details of their applications or negotiations in confidential reports. And that is the end of the directive. Any questions?
Any objections? No objections? Passed. Thank you. Let me just say this. I appreciate all y'all coming. It was a lengthy meeting today. A lot of stuff passed that was real important to a lot of people. But thanks for coming.
Wait. We have one more exhibit item.
Do what?
We have one more item.
What is it?
It's Exhibit 12, which is a FERC docket EL 21-56. It's the Commission versus System Energy Resources. It's a possible executive session to discuss litigation strategy
okay.
pursuant to Louisiana Revised Statute 4216 at the request of Commissioner Scarmetta. I will entertain a motion to go into executive session before everyone leaves the room, please.
That'll be fine.
I'll second.
If everybody would leave the room, we have an executive session. It's not going to last long.
No. I told Mr. Fontham he has 5 minutes.
Okay, if everyone could please clear the room, thank you.
Well.
Okay, we're ready. We'll entertain a motion to come out of executive session. A second? A motion by Commissioner Skrmetta, a second by Commissioner Francis.